Before his death, Ryukin dictated an edict to be read across the nation. His words were carried by couriers and heralds, spreading from village to village, town to town. The people gathered in the streets, listening with bated breath as the message of their leader's final decree echoed through the land. To my beloved people, the time of dynasties has ended. This nation shall no longer be bound by the rule of bloodlines or divine spirits. You, the people, will forge your destiny. Choose your leaders wisely, and let no one rule through fear or tyranny. This is your land. Protect it, nurture it, and cherish it. You have my faith, my hope, and my eternal love. This was the final announcement spread across the whole country as people wept in sorrow. In Ryukin's castle, the divine spirits, present but unseen, watched in silence. They were saddened by the end of their bond with Ryukin, but they also carried a deep disappointment. Their purpose, to guide and empower a ruler, had been cast aside since he was the last descendant of his bloodline. Yet, as they observed the faces of the people hearing Ryukin's words, they saw something else: hope. The next day, the dawn broke gently over the horizon, bathing the land in a warm golden hue. Ryukin, frail and pale, was carried by his loyal retainers to the base of a grand sakura tree. The blossoms, delicate and pink, swayed gently in the early morning breeze, their petals falling softly around him. "Leave me here," he whispered, his voice barely audible but resolute. "This is where I wish to rest." His retainers hesitated, their eyes filled with grief, but they obeyed, placing him tenderly under the tree and stepping back, bowing deeply before leaving their lord alone. The world around him was quiet, except for the leaves rustling and birds' distant calls. Ryukin's gaze shifted to the rising sun. Its light danced across the landscape, illuminating the fields and mountains he had fought to protect. He took a deep, labored breath, his chest rising and falling with effort. His mind wandered, memories flooding back. He saw himself as a child, playing in the courtyards of the shogunate, his father's stern yet loving gaze watching over him. He saw his mother's tender smile and his little sister's cheerful laugh chimed in his ears. He then saw the faces of his masters and comrades, those who had stood by him through the bloodshed and loss. And finally he saw Kene, her laughter, her gentle touch, and the life they had dreamed of sharing with their unborn child. In the stillness, an ethereal golden deer emerged from the woods. It paused at the edge of the clearing, its large, soulful eyes meeting his. The creature seemed to regard him with a quiet understanding, as if sensing his pain and the peace he was finally about to find. "Don't worry, my beloved," he murmured, his voice trembling. "I'll join you and our child soon," spoke Ryukin as he smiled faintly. His body grew heavier, his breath slower. His hand, once steady and powerful, fell limp to his side. Thud! The petals continued to drift around him, settling on his still form as the first rays of the sun painted the sky. In that final moment, Ryukin found himself standing in a vast field of golden reeds. The landscape was ethereal, the light soft and inviting. He looked around, bewildered at first, until he saw a figure in the distance. Kene. She stood amidst the reeds, her radiant smile as bright as the sun. In her arms was a child, their child, giggling softly. Her eyes, full of love and warmth, met his. Ryukin's lips parted, a smile breaking across his face for the first time in what felt like an eternity. He began to walk, his hand brushing against the reeds as he moved toward her. Each step felt lighter, each breath easier, as the weight of his regrets and sorrows faded away. Discover hidden stories at Empire. "Welcome home, my love." Kene's voice, soft and melodious, called out to him. Ryukin reached out, his fingers intertwining with hers. He gazed at the child in her arms, a tear slipping down his cheek. For the first time in years, he felt truly at peace. The family embraced, the golden reeds swaying gently around them. Ryukin had finally returned, his journey complete. And in the warmth of their reunion, he found the peace he had longed for, a peace that no war, no kingdom, and no divine power could ever grant him. The sun rose higher, and the field of reeds shimmered, eternal and serene. But just as he was about to finally rest for eternity, shatter, tremble, the peaceful serenity of the field of reeds suddenly fractured. A low, resonant hum echoed through the fabric of reality, shaking Ryuken's very soul. His consciousness, which had been slipping away toward eternal rest, was jolted back as the air cracked violently around him. Crack! A tear in the sky split the heavens, jagged and infinite, revealing a void of indescribable depth. From this rift emerged a being unlike anything Ryuken, or any mortal, could comprehend. It had a humanoid silhouette, but its form shimmered and shifted endlessly, composed of countless galaxies, stars, and universes swirling together in an eternal dance. The mere presence of this entity sent waves of cosmic energy rippling across dimensions. Ryuken, though weak and on the brink of death, felt an overwhelming force pulling him upward. He was lifted gently yet irresistibly toward the being, his body weightless but his mind spinning from the impossibility of what he was witnessing. The being's voice boomed, a symphony of creation and destruction, reverberating through all planes of existence. Sasakai Ryuken, it declared, its words both incomprehensibly vast and deeply personal, as if they were etched directly into his soul. Your journey does not end here. Ryuken's eyes flickered open, his breath shallow but steady. The voice continued, resonating with divine authority. I am Ram, the god of space, declared this multidimensional entity. I have watched your mortal life for your honor, your perseverance, and your unyielding spirit in the face of despair. Stated the god in a magnanimous. Ryuken's voice was hoarse, filled with confusion and defiance. I've caused nothing but death. I've led my people to ruin. I couldn't even protect my own family. Ram's gaze, infinite and all-encompassing, bore into him. So why does a god have any interest in a failure like me? Spoke Ryuken, indignant to leave the realm of his end as he watched the apparition of his wife and child, looking at him from the field with yearning eyes. In response, the god of space stated, It is because of those regrets that you are chosen. You have known loss, endured grief, and borne the burden of guilt. You are not perfect, Sasakai Ryuken, but you are resolute, declared Ram in a stern and authoritative tone. The space around them began to shift, the fractured sky reforming into a kaleidoscope of cosmic wonders. Ryuken saw glimpses of universes collapsing, dimensions unraveling, and entities beyond his comprehension waging wars that spanned eons. Ram lifted Ryuken closer, his voice softening but remaining resolute. You're needed to save everything that exists. The scene shifted dramatically to the serene mountainside, where Ryuken had once found his greatest happiness, long before his life descended into turmoil. Now, standing before him was a figure clad in a black hakama, a headband covering his left eye. Ha! What's this? Ryuken muttered, his voice tinged with confusion. He was utterly baffled by the sudden change in surroundings, a stark contrast to the chaos he had just endured. As clarity returned to his mind, he recognized the figure standing before him. His heart froze as he realized the enormity of what he had just relived. How am I here again? No, how are you here? He demanded, his voice rising with the weight of his bewilderment. Khan in his Byakwa persona stood silently, his expression somber yet overwhelmed by the torrent of emotions he just experienced. He reached up, slowly pulling back his headband to reveal a glowing blue eye, its light pulsating with otherworldly energy. It was an eye Ryuken had seen before, after his defeat at Khan's hands. This is one of my special powers, Khan began, his tone calm but filled with a quiet intensity. It's called world creation. Ryuken's eyes widened, his mind reeling from the revelation. World creation? He spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. It allows me to create a world from my imagination, Khan explained. Although it's not perfect yet, it enabled me to shape everything you saw and experienced. But the key difference was that you, Ryuken, were the subject whose imagination molded this world, replied Khan. He adjusted his headband, covering the glowing eye once more. Ryuken's thoughts raced. What kind of godly power is that? It wasn't an illusion either. One of my divine spirits can distinguish between reality and mirage. Yet I felt nothing amiss. Every breath, every wound, they were real, he asserted, his gaze locked on Khan, his mind still absorbing the information with the absurdness of what he had just endured. Khan's expression remained cold and stoic. You can't possibly tell me it's because you've reached the third enlightenment in the space law. That would be too absurd, too unheard of. Even the Emperor's brother, with his own third enlightenment, can't wield such power, said the hero of space. Ryuken's voice trembled slightly, reflecting the weight of the revelation and the awe he felt in the presence of Khan's unfathomable power. Enough about me. Let's talk about you. Khan spoke, his voice steady, betraying no emotion. Ryuken's eyes narrowed, suspicion brewing within him. Do you wish to know why I used this ace of mine on you instead of keeping it a secret? Khan asked, his expression unreadable. Why? Ryuken's voice was curt, and his patience was wearing thin. Because I wanted to understand what kind of man you were. That answer ignited Ryuken's simmering anger. His hand quickly grabbing the hilt of his katana, fury igniting in his eyes. You bastard! You made me relive all those traumatizing moments of my life. The loss of my family, the death of my wife and unborn child. You made me go through all that pain and torment again just because you were curious? He bellowed, his voice quivering with rage. Khan stood unfazed, understanding the depth of Ryuken's reaction. If someone had made Khan relive his past as Elric, to experience the misery again for amusement or curiosity, he would be furious as well. I understand your anger, Khan said firmly. However, it wasn't done because I find any joy in it. Ryuken's grip on his katana tightened, but something in Khan's tone gave him pause. Someone once told me, Khan continued, the true measure of a man isn't what he reveals to the world, but what he hides from it. He cited the wisdom imparted to him by the martial emperor during the conclave of heroes. And now that I know what kind of man you are, I have nothing but respect for you, Khan declared, his voice humble and sincere, a rare glimpse of genuine admiration breaking through his usual stoicism. What? Ryuken stammered, slightly taken aback. His surprise wasn't rooted in Khan's respect but in the unexpected lack of pity or regret in Khan's words. Throughout his life, Ryuken carried a heavy regret, the failure to protect his loved ones in his original world. This regret haunted him, driving his every action and choice even after arriving in Vantria. Even when Ram, the god of space, appeared, offering him a chance to become the hero of space, Ryuken accepted, not for honor or glory, but to prevent the same failure from happening again in Vantria. Though others would praise him for his honor and courage, Ryuken always inwardly cursed his inability to save those dearest to him. He bore the weight of the world on his shoulders, a burden he accepted but never fully forgave himself for. Yet here stood Khan, a man who had defeated him, expressing genuine respect without judgment or condescension. Ryuken was baffled again. It was the first time someone far more powerful than him showed such genuine respect. To be honest, I'm a broken man myself, Khan began, his voice tinged with vulnerability. Driven by my hopelessness and negative outlook on the world, I was a very selfish and lonely man. He paused, his gaze steady but somber. Compared to the heart-wrenching and soul-tearing events you endured, my pain and circumstances aren't even 10% of your suffering. Khan's tone grew more reflective. But the difference between you and me is that I had ways to turn my life around, and still, I chose to dwell in the deepest pits of self-loathing. He exhaled deeply, the weight of his own choices evident in his voice. But unlike me, you, despite your pain and misery being many times greater, did not give in to the cruel fate. Khan's voice grew steadier, filled with admiration. You didn't go around blaming the world for your torment. Instead, you tried to make the best out of whatever life threw at you. No matter how big the loss, grief, and helplessness, you never gave up. For that, you have my utmost respect. Khan concluded, bowing deeply, a gesture of sincere reverence. Ryukin was baffled again. It was the first time someone far more powerful than him showed such genuine respect. Now that I know everything about you and what kind of man you are, Khan said, his voice steady and understanding. I know what shackles you. A heavy silence filled the air, thick with the weight of Khan's words. Ryukin stood motionless, processing the profound insight offered to him. What shackles did he imply? Ryukin wondered, his gaze shifting to Khan as his heart thudded with an unspoken question. There's a reason why you haven't been able to advance despite having the talent and character for it, Khan said, his hand sweeping in a wide arc. Suddenly, scenes from Ryukin's life appeared on colossal screens, each displaying moments that had shaped his destiny. Moments of joy, loss, and torment. The entirety of your life. You were never in control. Khan began, his tone gentle yet penetrating. You didn't choose to be born as the heir of the shogun. You couldn't control the death of your family or your wife. The betrayal of the daimyos, the tragic mistake of the foreigners who killed your wife instead of you. None of these events were within your grasp. Spoke Khan in an empathetic voice. Khan's voice softened, resonating with empathy. It was always the world around you that shaped your life, and you were never truly in control of your fate. Ryukin's eyes widened slightly, the realization sinking in as Khan continued. For once in your life, don't be the hero the world needs or act because the situation demands it, advised Khan, his expression turning resolute. Do not live with the intention to sacrifice yourself for the sake of the world. Dying is easy, but what's hard is to keep on living and manage the aftermath of the great cataclysm. His words echoed along with the chilling breeze of the mountain. The words struck deep, shaking the very foundation of Ryukin's convictions. What? What are you saying? Are you telling me to abandon my role as the hero of space? Do you want me to give up on this fight against the demon god? Asked Ryukin, his personage bewildered. No, I'm not telling you to give up on your responsibilities. What I'm telling you, that you need to change your perspective on life entirely, stated Khan. Have you ever wondered what happened to the world after you died? Did it occur to you that despite your sacrifice, there may not be a better tomorrow for your people? Did you ever wonder if you made the right choice by sacrificing your life instead of running away and living to fight another day? He questioned sternly. Have you ever wondered whether you made the right decision? Khan questioned again. For once, be selfish. Don't let the outside world dictate your life anymore. He shared his final conclusion about the shackles that bound Sasakai Ryukin. For once, find your own happiness. As soon as Khan imparted his analyzed conclusion, Ryukin was suddenly shocked on the spot. For the first time in his life, he was hit with the cold hard truth about himself. And the credibility of this claim came from a man who just witnessed the entirety of his life as Ryukin relived those moments again. If Khan said those words after witnessing his whole story from a third-person view, then even Ryukin had to acknowledge the seriousness of his advice. As moments passed, Ryukin was lost in his thoughts and started doing some retrospection. My father raised me to be a good man because I was destined to take his place and lead our people one day, thought Ryukin, realizing that it was his father's will that was passed down to him even though he was just a child and hadn't even found his place in the world. My masters trained me out of their loyalty to the shogun and out of their pledge. It was their creed that aligned their loyalty with me, not because they deemed me worthy of their respect or had any faith in me, but because I was the son of a man they swore an oath to serve. And even after the fall of the shogun, they decided to swear fealty to me because of their own moral code and the hatred they had towards the daimyos. Some of them had lost their families, had their clans massacred, and also lost the lands they once guarded. The only person who could offer them a legitimate claim at revenge and also posed the highest degree of success to seek retribution was also me, thought Ryukin. Now that he heard Khan's verdict, It opened a new psychological aspect of his masters that he never even imagined before. Because if Ryukin wasn't the son of the shogun, their lord, and if he didn't have the chance to make the contract with the divine spirits, would they still have chosen to follow him? And even if they still did, for what qualities? Because if those two things were taken away, Ryukin would be no different than a son of a commoner, the kind even the samurais never cared to protect or avenge. They were never the guardians of the people. No, they were the loyal fighters of their royal lords. At the end of the day, theirs was a society where one's lineage decided their fate. At this moment, Ryukin came to question the very foundation of their journey of redemption and his training under them. My friends and allies bonded with me because they shared their discontent with the unfair world around them. All of them shared the ill fate of losing their family due to the civil war and the forceful conscription of both men and resources to fund those wars. But what if those wars never happened? Would I have ever met them in my life or even befriend them? I would be a royal heir and they would be just my subjects. Would I have the heart of a man who has seen the plight of the poor and the weak? Or would I just brush them off like flies, unbothered by their existence since I was born into nobility? Ryukin dwelled deeper into his own psyche and perception of the world as he questioned his morality. My divine spirits were with me because of the arrangement made by the gods with my bloodline. Even my father failed to make the contract with all 5 of them because he did not share their cruel nature. Hell, even the demonic spirits contracted me because I was a vengeful man who sought nothing but blood and destruction of my enemies in my younger days. Would they have chosen me as their contractor if I lived a different life than the path I chose because of my circumstances? Wondered Ryukin, because even Ryukin knew that the divine spirits weren't kind or magnanimous by nature. Rather, they lent their strength to the most befitting person of his ancestral bloodline due to the arrangement of the gods. What a joke! I've met many people who were far better than me and would have easily met the criteria to become the contractor of these divine and demonic spirits given how each of them is different in personality. The only thing that made me special or different from those eligible people was the bloodline of the first shogun. Otherwise, there was nothing special about me, especially during the war-trodden times. He recalled those old memories. The only person who truly understood me for what I am and played a huge part in what I turned out to be as a man was my wife, Kene. Spoke Ryukin to himself. She never told me to go to a war that I might not be able to return alive from. She never judged me on my merits or how special I was because of my blood as a royal or the contractor of the divine spirits. She criticized me when I was wrong and supported me when I did what was right. She never had any agenda, nor did she crave power or wealth. With her, I never had to pretend or feel overwhelmed because of my responsibilities. Ryukin started remembering the long conversations he had with Kane and how each of them helped him accept a new side of reality that he simply never witnessed. What if Kane and I never met? What if she and our child never died? Would I be so keen on playing the role of a hero and a leader? Or would I just choose the life of a peaceful man who only wanted to protect his family and nurture his children? He questioned the last great memories of his life. It was evidently clear to Ryukin now that regardless of how many heartbreaks, painful events, miserable losses, and important sacrifices he went through, not a single one of them was because of his choice. Forget being a hero of a god, fighting to save all the worlds like his. If his path wasn't shaped by outside factors, what kind of man would he be? Ryukin then looked at Kon/Byakuya and realized another difference between them. This man, he knows what he was. He accepted his true nature and then moved forward in his life. I may have dealt with my predicaments better than him, but even now, I haven't even found my true self, said Ryukin as he ended his retrospection. From Kon's own words, it turned out that Ryukin was a better man when dealing with pain, regret, and even making a sacrifice for the sake of the others, but where Ryukin was far behind than Kon, that he didn't even know what kind of person he truly was if his life hadn't forced him to adapt to these severe situations. He became strong to avenge his family. He learned under his masters to become a capable warrior to kill his enemies. He befriended others because they shared a common goal with him. Yet none of it came from his own character, rather the surroundings and situations. But finally, After hearing what Kon/Byakuya said to him, Ryukin recalled that those were the exact last words spoken by his beloved wife before she died in his arms. "And promise me, you'll find your own happiness." Kane's voice rang in Ryukin's mind as the time around him stopped. A sudden sense of realization dawned upon Ryukin as the world around him turned pitch black. His body let off a bluish aura as he felt an ethereal energy encapsulating his figure. Ryukin quickly took upon a meditation pose. What would have become of me if my father hadn't been betrayed? Would I have a different outlook on life if my mother and sister were with me growing up? What would I be doing now if my wife and child were alive? Would I still be keen on sacrificing myself for the sake of the world, or would I have chosen to live for their sake and seek peace in life? He questioned himself again and again to rediscover his own thoughts and his true nature. Kon, reminding him of his wife's last words, liberated Ryukin. Soon, Kon, who watched him, let out a slight smile. So he finally realized it. How can you say that you've lived a worthy life when you have never sought out your own happiness? You're not born to live or carry on other people's dreams and responsibilities. There is nothing wrong with wanting to forge your own path and destiny of your free will. It's not being selfish or greedy to seek joy in life. The more you avoid it, the deeper the mark it will leave on your mind. Those who cannot be honest with themselves can never achieve enlightenment. Spoke Kon, and both of them disappeared from this world. Swoosh! Kon and Ryukin now returned to the original realm where their battle took place. The Hero of Space's party members were bewildered as soon as Kon and Ryukin appeared out of nowhere within the crater, their original location. Then they saw the Hero of Space in the meditative pose, his mind cut off from the happenings of the outside world. "What happened to Ryukin-sama? What have you done to him?" questioned Kagura. "Leave him alone here. He is finally finding the long-overdue answers. The next time you see him again," spoke Kon with a smirk as he prepared to depart with Omega. "He will be a different man." That very evening after Kon and Ryukin's fight, the former now sat along with Omega in the palace housing the Sword Saint's remnant soul. At dusk, the Emperor of the Erdv Empire, Sakamoto Hideyoshi, also arrived. "What is it? Why did you request my presence, Hero of Darkness?" asked the Emperor in a regal and authoritative tone. As per his plans, today was the day Kon would officially join the Hero of Space's party and mingle with the rest of them. He had even helped weave a perfect background for Kon as Masamune Byakuya. Kon, who sat on a zabuton while peacefully enjoying a high-grade leaf tea, responded calmly. "It happened way earlier than I thought." "What do you mean?" asked the Emperor as Miyamoto Musashi's specter was also present there. "Your main intention for me to join the Hero of Space's party was for him to learn from me and also allow me to see what kind of person he was, hoping that when the time came we could join hands against the demon god. Was it not?" asked Kon cordially. Both of them nodded. Experience more on Empire. Officially, this wasn't part of the agreement because it was only a condition Musashi and Hideyoshi gave Kon after they helped him achieve the fourth enlightenment in the space law. Rom, the god of space, was the one who gave the decree, but in the end, these two key figures of the Empire of Space made it happen. In the beginning, Kon himself was skeptical of this condition but accepted it because he wanted to learn directly from the Sword Saint, and this arrangement allowed him to add Omega into the equation. So he didn't feel like he was losing anything after hearing their proposition. "How long has it been since I arrived here?" Kon asked, his eyes narrowing slightly as he contemplated the time that had passed. "For months, to be exact," responded Hideyoshi, his majestic robes flowing as he stood with an air of authority. That leaves 8 months before the Great War officially begins." In the original timeline, the Martial Emperor was still in the Beast Empire as Atrus Bellator. He hadn't met the Revenant Sovereign nor Miyamoto-sensei or the Hero of Space. Kon reflected silently, his mind racing with the intricate details of past and future events. "Then I have already achieved the objective of joining the Hero's party. The objective you expected would take longer to fulfill," Kon stated with a firm tone. "What? Care to explain?" asked the Emperor, his interest piqued by Kon's sudden declaration. "Thanks to Miyamoto-sensei's guidance, helping me achieve the fourth enlightenment. I was able to delve into Ryuken's past life before he was summoned. To be honest, there is much that even the two of you didn't know about him. It was an overwhelming and emotional journey, even for me as a mere spectator. But finally, I found what was holding him back all this time. Khan iterated with a concerned tone. Wait, what are you implying? The Emperor pressed, his curiosity turning into a need for clarity. It means that Ryuken has broken out of his shell. The kind of person he will become from now on is unknown, even to me. But the burden he has carried all this time has been unearthed, Khan explained. Is it what I think it is? Asked Miyamoto Musashi, his spectral form shimmering with interest. Yes, he has received the third enlightenment. As we speak, he is undergoing the same process we once did. Whether he achieves it within a day, a month, or a whole year is up to Ryuken, Khan confirmed with a gentle smile. Boom! The Emperor accidentally leaked his aura, unable to contain his ecstatic joy. Even the usually cold and stoic-faced sword saint let out a content smile, followed by a sigh of relief. But wait, you met him only for a few hours. Our predicted time was at least a few months for that to happen. We even planned a few expeditions for you two to go together. How could it happen so quickly? The Emperor questioned, his voice tinged with disbelief. Khan shrugged nonchalantly. I guess someone got tired of the repetitive plots and wanted to wrap things up quickly before the story stretched out unnecessarily. It also saved me the trouble of acting weak or hiding my strength for an unhealthy amount of time. So I'm not complaining, Khan replied, taking another sip of the fragrant tea. Both the Sword Saint and the Emperor exchanged confused glances, clearly not understanding a single word of Khan's cryptic statement. However, in an unknown dimension, a being lay down on a chair, revealing a sinister smile. Just like that, a few weeks passed quietly. Khan and Omega remained within their palace, dedicating themselves to rigorous training under Miyamoto Musashi. Although both had previously mastered the techniques the Sword Saint had taught them to perfection, this round of training was vastly different. This time, Khan and Omega sparred against each other instead of practicing in isolation. The intensity of their sessions was elevated by a strict rule. They were not allowed to use their mana, world energy, skills, bloodlines, or any special powers. This stripped-down approach forced them to rely solely on their swordsmanship. Both wielded ordinary katanas, akin to the samurais on Earth, making the sparring sessions more about pure skill and technique than overwhelming power. These matches weren't battles between two powerful saints with godly destructive capabilities. They mirrored duels between human samurai masters, grounded in precision and mastery. You can't always rely on the laws of this world and the unique powers it offers. I didn't become a renowned swordsman by just practicing with supernatural abilities, Musashi declared. His voice carried the weight of countless battles fought and survived. Every duel I fought was a life-and-death situation. Often, I knew nothing about my opponent's mastery level or unique fighting style. The principles and philosophies I've taught you both were forged in the crucible of these experiences, with my life on the line each time. Musashi's gaze sharpened as he continued. And remember, if your opponent can touch or injure you, even just a graze, that will be counted as your defeat. He paused, letting the gravity of his words settle before adding, and the one who loses 3 consecutive times. The room's atmosphere shifted dramatically as Musashi's murderous red aura erupted, a merciless and sinister grin spreading across his face. Will have to face me. 1 week later, in an artificial realm, created solely for the purpose of holding matches between saints of various caliber and powers, a man revealing a violet aura around his body was floating just a few meters above the ground. The surrounding itself was actually just the center of a massive 500-meter-wide crater formed after the intense battle between two powerful saints. Sasuke Ryuken was completely immersed in his meditative state, having no connection to the world. The radiating aura had isolated Ryuken, but in a way, it was also a byproduct of his body going through a form of transmutation. Crack, crack, shatter. One after another, dozens of void cracks appeared around Ryuken as his violet aura kept rising out of nowhere. Soon, these void cracks that shattered the reality around the hero of space started revealing a different scenery that didn't belong to Vantria. In one void crack, a young boy was playing with his sister, squeezing her plump cheeks. The second one had a dreary scenery of a castle burning while ginormous beings were fighting against a monstrous spirit. Meanwhile, the same boy saw this happening as he drifted off on a boat under the blanket of the night. The third one revealed a boy training in the mountains, his hands full of calluses and cuts over his arms. This boy had an intense gaze, filled with utter hatred towards the world. But more than that, his heart was filled with hatred towards himself. The fourth one revealed a scenario of a war where the same boy, now a fully grown man, led thousands of people in a war against the first enemy army. The fifth scenery consisted of the man's regret as he walked among the streets, watching the horrifying aftermath of that very battle. The sixth scenery involved him sitting under the moonlight with a beautiful woman. The next one followed with that very woman dying in his arms. The snippets continued, recounting Ryuken's life. However, crumble. Soon, all these void cracks started crumbling, falling like dust, and disappearing out of existence. Boom! A massive 10-kilometer-wide violent explosion occurred as Ryuken finally opened his eyes. In the sky, all 7 of his contracted spirits appeared in gigantic forms. So this is what it feels like. I wonder if it was the same for him. Spoke Ryuken as the entire explosion that should have shattered everything in existence disappeared, without even sending a shockwave. Sasakai Ryuken had finally achieved the third enlightenment in the space law after being stuck in that stage for so many years. Good. Now we can take our revenge against that Masamune bastard. Spoke the leader of the Divine Spirits in a conceited tone. The Divine Spirits hadn't forgotten their humiliating defeat against Khan. However, you will do no such thing, for he is not an enemy. Thanks to him, I have finally found my true self, declared Ryuken with a content smile. For all I know, spoke the hero of space with a grateful countenance. He is now my sworn brother. Khan and Omega continued their relentless sparring, their movements precise and calculated, each strike a testament to their growing mastery over the blade. Clang! Khan's blade met Omega's dual swords, the clash sending sparks flying as they struggled for dominance. Slash! Omega, ever the opportunist, used the katana in his right hand to block while swinging the left towards Khan's head, aiming for a decisive blow. Duck! Anticipating the attack, Khan swiftly ducked, his movements fluid as he shifted his weight, using his left shoulder to shove Omega backward, creating a momentary gap between them. Slash! Seizing the opportunity, Khan swung his katana upward, aiming to cut through Omega's chest and head in one clean strike. Whoosh! Omega, with reflexes honed from countless battles, took a quick back step, narrowly dodging the blade by a mere half-inch, a fraction of a second that saved him from a devastating hit. Capitalizing on the momentum of his dodge, Omega launched a swift counterattack with his right leg. Kick! However, Khan was not one to be caught off guard. He expertly blocked the incoming kick with the flat side of his sword, absorbing the impact but still getting pushed back a meter. Rustle! The force of the kick was enough to send Khan skidding slightly, a reminder of the stakes. Even a minor hit would have marked his defeat under the Sword Saint's rules. Whoosh! Khan quickly dashed forward, bending his right knee as he aimed a horizontal slash at Omega's legs, his katana slicing through the air with deadly precision. However, Omega, seemingly one step ahead, leaped high into the air, avoiding the strike effortlessly and bringing down both his katanas in a powerful vertical attack aimed at Khan. Clang! Reacting instantly, Khan pivoted on his foot, using the momentum from his previous attack to spin around and bring his sword up just in time to block Omega's descending blades. The clash of steel echoed through the sparring arena. To any onlooker, this scene would resemble a flawlessly choreographed dance, each movement synchronized in a deadly ballet of blades. But only true masters could discern the subtle nuances, the constant adaptation and split-second decisions both fighters made as they countered each other's techniques with uncanny precision. Bang! Clang! The arena was alight with the brilliance of their clashing swords, sparks flying incessantly as the blades struck with unrelenting speed and force, illuminating their intense battle. Miyamoto Musashi, observing his disciples from the sidelines, couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. His normally stoic face softened into a satisfied expression as he watched Kon and Omega push each other to their limits. Neither giving an inch, each move a testament to their growth and dedication. These two are my most talented disciples to date. Shame that neither of them is part of my bloodline. If they were, the future of the Erdvampire would be unimaginably bright with either of them in a position to rule. Well, I can't tell them that. Otherwise, it'll go straight to their heads, thought the sword saint who appeared in his prime, donning a black and red hakama. Over the past 3 weeks, Musashi had purposefully enforced strict rules during Kon and Omega sparring sessions. They weren't allowed to use any special powers or regenerative abilities. Every move, every slash, had to count as if they were mortal samurais from Earth's ancient times, where a single wound could spell certain death. Samurais in my era didn't possess the luxury of regeneration or the ability to regrow lost limbs. A warrior who doesn't rely on mana or world energy, yet can still dominate their opponent, would be a terrifying force in this world. When they begin to incorporate their saint-rank skills into these techniques, they'll become untouchable and virtually unkillable. He reflected, the weight of his thoughts grounding him in the reality of the power he was shaping. My hope is for both of them to surpass even me. Given their character and potential, they may well become invaluable allies for the Erdvampire. One carries the mantle of a god's hero, and the other has the bloodline of a god-beast. There is nothing to regret in their training. Musashi's gaze softened as he reminisced about his own past. I never had someone who mastered my techniques to spar with. Perhaps if I did, I might have pushed beyond my potential, possibly breaking the limits of swordsmanship to reach an even higher realm. Who knows, maybe one day, these two could fulfill that long-lost wish of mine. He mused, a quaint smile forming on his face. Meanwhile, just give up, damn it, said Kon to Omega telepathically. Sorry, Master, but I can't. I'd rather prefer to die than face Miyamoto-sensei again, replied Omega. Do you think you'll live if I had to face him again? I almost died a dozen times when I sparred with him. He is just on a different level than us. In the end, no amount of talent can beat the experience built over centuries, responded Kon. Ironically, neither the master nor the disciples outwardly spoke how greatly they admired and respected each other. Instead of expressing their honest feelings, they just decided to try to kill each other, which was a far more common and familiar approach among men. Despite the tense exchange, neither Kon nor Omega showed any sign of slowing down. Each strike, block, and counterattack came with the force and precision of warriors who had spent years perfecting their craft. The clash of metal filled the air, punctuated by the occasional grunt or the rustle of fabric as they moved with blinding speed. Omega's dual swords moved in perfect harmony, creating an almost impenetrable wall of defense. His eyes, sharp and focused, watched every slight movement of Kon's body, anticipating his next move. On the other hand, Kon wielded his katana with fluid grace, his every motion calculated and efficient. The two warriors danced around the sparring arena, their steps light yet deliberate. It was a battle of endurance, skill, and strategy, each trying to find an opening in the other's defense while pushing each other's limits without any breaks. Omega, we could just stop and call it a draw, Kon suggested, trying to mask his fatigue. Not a chance, Master. You know what Miyamoto-sensei said. Only one of us can win, and it's not going to be you. Omega shot back, his lips curling into a smirk. Kon gritted his teeth. Omega was relentless, and as much as he admired his first subordinate's resolve, he needed to end this soon. Suddenly, Kon changed his tactics. He feigned an attack to the left, then quickly pivoted to the right, aiming for Omega's side. Omega, however, was quick to adapt. He spun on his heel, blocking the strike with one sword while thrusting the other toward Kon's midsection. Kon barely dodged, feeling the rush of air as the blade passed mere inches from his torso. He countered with a downward slash, forcing Omega to step back and reset his stance. They stood there for a moment, breathing heavily, their eyes locked in a silent battle of wills. The sparring had become more than just a training exercise. It was a test of who could push themselves further and who could withstand the pressure the longest. Watching from the sidelines, Miyamoto Musashi folded his arms, a ghost of a smile playing at the corners of his lips. His two disciples had grown exponentially in the past weeks, and this sparring session was a testament to their hard work and dedication. Impressive, he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. But they still have much to learn. Khan and Omega charged at each other again, their blades meeting in a flurry of sparks and steel. The sound of their clashing echoed through the arena, each strike more ferocious than the last. Neither gave an inch, their pride and honor driving them forward. Finally, Khan saw his chance. Omega's left sword dropped just slightly, an opening that lasted only a fraction of a second. But it was enough. Khan surged forward, his katana slicing through the air. Omega reacted instinctively, twisting his body to avoid the strike, but it was too late. Khan's blade grazed his shoulder, drawing a thin line of blood. Both warriors froze, the realization sinking in. The fight was over. Khan lowered his sword, breathing heavily. "I win," he said, a mix of relief and exhaustion in his voice. Omega nodded, wiping the sweat from his brow. "Yeah, you did. But don't think for a second I'll let it happen again." Miyamoto Musashi approached them, his eyes gleaming with approval. "Well done, both of you. But remember, a true warrior doesn't rest on his laurels. Tomorrow we start again." Khan and Omega exchanged a glance. Their silent agreement was evident. This was just another beginning of their intense training regimes, and they were ready for whatever came next. But at the same time, both of them spoke one word in their minds that represented their honest reaction. Damn! A couple more days passed, and Khan as well as Omega were already rediscovering themselves as samurai-class warriors. Without the use of any skills or powers, new ideas to adapt during battle, integrating the sword styles while furnishing their techniques kept coming each day. The occasional beatings to death from Miyamoto Musashi also alleviated their progress further. This should be more than enough. I can confidently say you're both ready for the upcoming war against the Demon Empire. However, I would suggest you two restrain your skills to the most degree and use them only against the types of enemies where none of your other powers don't work for any reason. Spoke the Sword Saint. Yes, we know, Sensei. To be honest, I don't think we'd need to use them 99.99% of our enemies at all. You do know that both Omega and I can kill hundreds of millions of people without even unsheathing our katana, right? Asked Khan tauntingly. Yes, Sensei. I can just use the Anarchy Howl to destroy even thousands of warships in a 40-kilometer radius. An opponent would need our acknowledgement first to even draw our blade, replied Omega cordially. And I don't even need to summon my katana. I can just think and millions of Space Force blades will shred enemy forces or even a fifth-stage saint from the true dimension without giving them even a chance to defend. Spoke Khan, gloating shamelessly. Sigh. That is the biggest curse of having powerful disciples. All I can hope is that you two don't become complacent and give up on your training. Even if it takes centuries, just try to keep getting better. I have taught you everything, stuff that wasn't even part of our previous arrangement. So I hope that when the time comes, you help out the Erd Vampire. Consider that as the last request from your master, said Miyamoto Musashi. Both Omega and Khan made a 90-degree bow and replied in an earnest tone. Disciples will keep their promise. Spoke both Khan and Omega in unison. There was no hesitation in their voice. It didn't feel unnatural to them either because of various factors. There was already a secret allegiance within them, whether it came through their shared goals or the will of God of Space. Khan already had a reasonable understanding of Emperor Sakamoto Hideyoshi. He also had a good impression of the hero of space. Although many things were kept under wraps for now, there was no harm in supporting the Erd Vampire in times of crisis. Even if Khan couldn't officially get involved as Hero of Darkness, he still had the identity of Masamune Byakuya already prepared for him to use in such a predicament. Rustle. Strong gusts of flow within the dojo situated in the Sword Saints created realm. Miyamoto Musashi, the dual-sword samurai, revealed a content smile as he uttered his last words to both his disciples. Then I hope you both are lucky in your future adventures. At the same time, in a pristine white and dark brown castle, there was a golden pagoda where the hero of space currently resided. Most of the castle was now bustling with hundreds of guests, varying from various races and species native to the Erd Empire. Many of them were key figures who played important roles in the governing authority of the Empire of Space. Although the monarchy was practiced in this empire, the structure was no different than the shogunate that once existed on Earth. At this moment, a small congratulatory ceremony was held. Among the attendees were members of the imperial family, some members of the daimyo clans, monks from the Temple of Rom, and a few scholars who also practiced the space law. As for the reason why all these important figures had arrived out of the blue, all of them had come to congratulate Ryukin after hearing that he finally attained the Third Enlightenment just a few days ago. This was a piece of very big news for all the people in the Empire's authoritative positions, as well as those who were already aware of the imminent war against the Demon Empire. Unbeknownst to Kon and Ryukin, there had been some serious recent developments regarding the strategic advantages all the empires had. Even those who had been targeting the Empire of Time after finding out that the Hero of Time had regressed and possessed the knowledge of the future were left with no choice but to retract their forces temporarily for various reasons. And in such tense times, the pleasant news of their chosen hero achieving such a huge milestone would be nothing but a welcoming assurance. Because although Ryukin was currently the seventh strongest person in their empire, as the hero of space, chosen by their god, it'd be him leading their banner as part of the customs when it came to the matter of demon god. And his becoming even stronger was also good for the other generals and their armies because he had special powers to not only sway the war on their side but also save countless lives in the process. Many already had a very good impression of Ryukin, as they had learned his history from the abbot of the temple after he was summoned in Vantria. Ryukin was shogun in his homeworld with similar culture as them, with the twist of divine spirits added. But he also sacrificed his life to save the fate of his country. Based on their creed, Ryukin, as a chosen hero, had already proven himself to be a respectable warrior in their eyes. Hence, even the hero's party members had great admiration for Ryukin and would normally flare up whenever anyone insulted him. One after another, all the important people arrived, and finally came the emperor himself. Every single person present in this castle bowed respectfully in front of the son of the nation. Ceremonial rituals were held, introductions were made, and soon followed the entertainment. Everyone started enjoying the feast, prepared by the most skilled chefs in the whole empire, consisting of the rare ingredients of spices and meat of even delicious legendary rank monsters, served only on rare occasions such as this. While the best dancers and performers showed their dazzling skills, added with melodic music in the background, the guests chatted amongst themselves while sharing pleasantries with those seated beside them. Even the princes and the princesses of the Erd Empire had made their appearance, so people who also wanted to curry favors with these potential rulers of the empire in the future found this celebration as a golden opportunity to forge connections. Soon, a play popular amongst the nobility started on a stage while skilled artists performed it similar to a theater performance. Ryukin, who was seated on a zabuton just a few meters away from the imperial family, whispered to Kagura as he asked, "Where are they?" Kagura, the nine-tailed fox along with Tomo, the snow demon, replied one after another, "We asked around. Nobody knows where they currently reside," replied the fox demon, her voice filled with dissatisfaction. "It's as if they appeared into thin air," said the snow demon with her usual cold tone. "How arrogant. I acknowledge that they won against us, but didn't the match between that snake bastard Masamune Byakuya and our lord hero end in a draw?" Suddenly, Shingen retorted in a displeased tone. "I give them the honor to admire their skills, but social decorum should be followed since they're also part of the hero's party now," said Isshin, the Onmyoji saint. It was right then that a voice rang into Ryukin's head, an isolated speech message sent by the emperor himself. "He has left for a very important mission of his own." Ryukin was baffled at first but then maintained his composure. Sakamoto Hideyoshi, the emperor, also knew how big a part Kon played in Ryukin's new milestone. He did leave something though, iterated the emperor. He summoned an ornate golden box from his space ring and passed it along to Ryukin using his world energy. Many people noticed this subtle exchange between the emperor and the hero of space. Is His Majesty giving Hiro-sama a sort of gift for his achievement? Wondered the princess, who had a demonic horn on the left side of her head. Well, father must have been waiting for Ryukendano's advancement for quite some time as well. It's given that he would reward the hero, spoke the eldest prince. Clink. Ryukin opened the lid of the box and gazed at the contents within. Everyone else also had their gazes locked on the hero of space, waiting for his reaction. Ha! Ryukin chuckled, his expression filled with amusement as he looked at the gift left by Kon. What a show-off, said Ryukin, because inside the box was Masamune Byakuya's black headband. Only Ryukin understood why Kon/Byakuya left him that headband. Because it hid his left eye that could use the world creation ability. Continue your adventure with Empire. In a way, even as he bade farewell, Kon was simply saying, I'm still stronger than you. After closing the lid of the box, Ryukin pulled it into his own space ring. He didn't reveal the supposed reward to anyone and only revealed a quaint smile. Soon, his head turned to the emperor, his eyes narrowing with curiosity and a hint of suspicion. Who really is Masamune Byakuya? Ryukin asked via the isolated voice message, his voice low but filled with intensity. He helped me discover what I couldn't in both of my lives, and I refused to believe the story he told me that day as well. There's no way someone as powerful as him part of just some fallen noble clan. Also, he had a lot of bloodline skills that His Majesty, the Emperor's lineage, do not possess. Was he just some random saint you brought to assist me? Or is there a greater secret behind his existence? He queried in an earnest tone. By no means was Sasakai Ryukin a fool. If anything, he was certain of after his encounter with Kon/Byakuya, that the latter was far too powerful and also distinct than everyone he had met and fought so far ever since he became the hero of space. The Emperor, sitting quietly in his majestic robes, looked up at the moon glowing in the night sky. His expression was serene, yet his words carried a weight that resonated deeply. He is on a journey similar to yours, Hideyoshi began, his tone contemplative. A path he was meant to walk years ago. The main difference between you two is simply this. He has already decided to forge his destiny with his own hands. And one thing is for sure, he isn't the kind to abide by the rules. Rather, he creates his own rules. Iterated Emperor Hideyoshi, his expression filled with appreciation for some reason. Ryukin's brows furrowed as he processed the Emperor's words. There was something enigmatic about Masamune Byakuya, something that set him apart. He wasn't merely a guide or an ally. He was a man on a mission, driven by a purpose that seemed to mirror Ryukin's own. Yet he had no idea if or when he'd meet this mysterious man ever again. 10 days later, thousands of kilometers away, a gigantic black castle flew in the sky with the speed of lightning. This ginormous and tall black castle that spanned 5 kilometers in width and 1 kilometer in height floated quietly in the cloudy sky, not even leaving behind a shadow or any sound as it remained undetected even to the clouds in the sky. How long? Asked Kon. Kon was now back to his original appearance, adorning his signature dark gray long coat made of the legendary rank monster skin. He, Omega, and Vildred were currently escorted by Lucian Varangis, the tall, burly, golden-haired vampire. This vampire was the right-hand man of the Revenant Sovereign and was a 7th stage saint himself. Yet a man of his strength and status was merely acting like a guide and also a guardian to Kon. Just a few more hours, young lord, replied the vampire saint in a respectful tone. 3 hours later, the flying Bran Castle finally arrived in the capital of the Belmont Kingdom, a land famously known as the Kingdom of Vampires. The sight that greeted Kon as they descended was both surreal and fascinating. The vast majority of the architecture resembled Victorian-era Europe, while the large cities had multiple floor systems where roads and districts were connected perfectly to each other. Although the weather was mostly cloudy and rainy, the citizens of this kingdom managed everything just about as easily as breathing. "Where am I? In Yarnum?" wondered Khan. To him, the capital they had arrived in resembled a lot of old London or Paris if he were to make comparisons with Earth. The majority of the population here were vampires, but the society was an eclectic mix, featuring demi-humans, monster species, and even elves. However, these were not the typical elves Khan expected. They were dark elves, their presence a stark contrast to the woodland dwellers he had imagined. Stay connected through empire. As Khan surveyed the bustling kingdom, he noticed creatures that appeared to be akin to the undead, yet they possessed life and flesh like any other being. His eyes widened as he took in the sheer variety of species coexisting in harmony. "The diversity here exceeds even that of the Rocco's empire," said Khan in a serious tone. There were arachnid-like beings, towering over the crowds with their multi-limbed forms, and gigantic animals that spoke with the eloquence of scholars. Some wore intricate jewelry and finely tailored clothes where their bodies allowed. Among the crowd, a goose and a panda sold soup noodles to those attending their small restaurant, a peculiar yet oddly fitting sight. Then there was a green ogre walking alongside a talking donkey. Khan's gaze then fell upon a massive three-headed wolf, standing 10 meters tall, with darkness seemingly oozing from its fur. The wolf's eyes glowed menacingly, yet it mingled calmly with the rest of the citizens. What struck Khan most was the lack of any visible hierarchy or division between humanoid species and monster races. They lived together as if part of a single, cohesive civilization, each contributing to the community without prejudice. Flying above were black gargoyles and humanoid beings with bat-like wings. Khan even spotted colossal humanoids, their veins glowing with eerie, luminous blood, horns resembling demons, and wings that mimicked those of ravens. But this was just normal people going about their business. Khan's final destination was on the different edge of the capital. After they landed in a secluded area of the capital, presumably the living estate of the Revenant Sovereign, they were greeted by an army of royal knights. Khan had already met these people when they arrived at the Erd Empire the first time, so he wasn't taken aback. Amidst the extraordinary crowd, Khan's attention was drawn to a figure approaching him, a 2-meter-tall demi-human with almost metallic white skin, and the head of a buck adorned with golden antlers. His regal bearing and the scrolls tucked under his arm indicated his role. "Welcome, esteemed guests." The man spoke in a voice as smooth as silk, bowing slightly. "I am the royal scribe, here to guide you," he spoke. Soon, a massive 4-meter-tall being also came forward. After a while, they entered a massive grand hall of the main castle that was 3 times the size of the Bran Castle both in width and height. The line of guards and servants welcoming them here wasn't lacking either. "This is Boris, one of my generals," said Lucian, his voice reverberating through the grand hall. Lucian then gestured toward the towering figure, a being that stood 3 meters tall. His entire form was encased in black armor, and emerald flames danced across his body, including where his eyes should have been, replaced instead by burning fire. Boris was a 5th-stage saint, and his presence was imposing. Yet, despite his spectral appearance, it was evident that he was as sentient and intelligent as any other person in the room. And finally, in the throne hall, was the Revenant Sovereign waiting for Khan and the company. Argos and Khan found themselves in the hall, joined by Vildred, Lucian, Omega, and Rathnar in Khan's body. The nocturnal nature of the kingdom's inhabitants meant that the real discussions were only just beginning. "I guess you have questions," Argos Belmont, the Revenant Sovereign, said, his tone both inviting and expectant. "Yes, a lot of them," Khan responded without hesitation. The Martial Emperor had briefed Khan about Argos, one of the 4 sovereigns. However, beyond that, the details were sparse. He needed answers to the growing mysteries surrounding Argos and his connection to the unfolding events. "Who exactly are you?" Khan asked, his voice steady but filled with curiosity. How did you know I would be present during the conclave of heroes? And what ties do you have with the god of darkness? Argos smiled, a knowing expression spreading across his face as he prepared to divulge the truth. I have been looking after you for quite some time now, he began. I possess relics passed down through generations that allowed me to detect your existence the moment you reached the first stage of sainthood. Argos paused, allowing Khan to absorb the weight of his words before continuing. As you can see, I am a vampire with extensive authority and deep connections. Your presence at the Conclave of Heroes was no mere coincidence. It was orchestrated by me through the heavenly king of fire, Romulus Lycaeus, one of your mentors. Khan's eyes narrowed slightly as he processed this revelation. The web of connections was more intricate than he had imagined. Although I received information about the hero of time's regression through the Erd Vampire, specifically from Miyamoto Musashi, the sixth hero of space, explained Argos. My plan was always to reveal my existence as your backer during the Conclave of Heroes. The room fell into a contemplative silence, the gravity of Argos's revelations sinking in. Khan realized that his path had been under watchful eyes for longer than he had known, guided by forces that had shaped the course of his destiny without his knowledge. Why? What do you gain from this? Khan's eyes narrowed as he tried to piece together Argos's motivations. Are you a believer of the god of darkness? He queried, seeking clarity on Argos's true allegiance. Argos chuckled softly, his expression one of mild amusement. I've never even prayed to any god in my entire life, he replied, his tone laced with both pride and defiance. But what I do have is a mission that required me to safeguard you until you're able to fulfill certain conditions. Khan's curiosity deepened. And what are those conditions? He pressed, needing to understand the purpose that tied their fates together. Argos leaned forward slightly, his gaze intent and unwavering. Well, he began, a hint of mystery in his voice. It's better if you heard it from someone who also shares that lifelong mission of mine. Argos Belmont, the Revenant Sovereign, finally revealed his connection to Khan as the hero of darkness. Contrary to Khan's previous speculations, the Vampire King had no ties to the god of darkness at all. But not only did he know the heavenly king of fire, Romulus Lycaeus, one of Khan's mentors, who had been hiding his true identity for the past 300 years, but he also had the means to track Khan ever since he became a first-stage saint. The only definitive answer he offered indicated that the Revenant Sovereign was carrying on a mission that had been handed down to him. Before Khan could ask who passed down this mission to Argos, the latter mentioned another entity that shared the same mission as him. Do you know, did someone like me, a being who can easily rule over an empire by myself, chose to settle and create such a small kingdom? 50 years ago, none of these empires even knew that I existed until I purposefully revealed myself to them, iterated the Vampire King. Why is that? Asked Khan in a calm yet eager tone. Because I was biding for time. A small kingdom is perfect for hiding things. Most of the species and races in my kingdom are actually discarded parts of civilizations and empires. It didn't even matter if they were born in an empire that served a particular god or goddess. Even if these people followed the doctrine of those said gods, there was a prejudice against them. He revealed a fact about the Belmont Kingdom. Just because someone was born as a vampire, demonkin, a dark elf, a thrall, an ogre, an arachnid, descendant of some monsters, there was already a preconceived notion against them in those so-called civilized and divine empires. No matter where you go, you will always find such outcasts, shunned and discriminated against just for being born, stated Argos sternly. He is correct, boy. The Rocco's Empire is a prime example of how an empire that doesn't follow any religious institution, serves a god, or has a class system catered towards a particular species or a race, faces so many obstacles. True democracy is just an illusion, and there will always be people who try to overtake these civilizations. At best, one can hope that the governing authority at least treats them like living beings. Because in this world where powerhouses like saints and legendary monsters exist, the weak have no say in this arduous journey we call life, said Rathnar, his voice echoing in the throne hall. The Peak Saint is right. You must be aware of how many times even the Rocco's empire faced uprisings and coups for centuries even after he founded the empire despite the opposition from many neighboring empires. Even though the monarchy no longer exists, the Whitlock family both ruled and protected the empire up until 100 years ago. Even after their annihilation, that empire still has 3 seventh-stage saints to protect it. I did not have that kind of luxury, explained Argos in a contemplative tone. It is true, young lord. Even I became a 7th-stage saint only a decade ago. Although we would have no problem turning ourselves into an empire, we simply did not seek bloodshed. Spoke Lucian, the golden-haired vampire. So this Belmont kingdom is a safe haven for the outcasts and misfits of all the other empires of Vantria? Asked Khan. Yes, but as you can see, the population is smaller even compared to other kingdoms, and most of the species are either nocturnal or have distinctions that are considered taboo in many other empires. If we decided to expand, there would be more than enough cause raised in the name of religion and whatnot to start a war. Spoke the Revenant Sovereign. I'm the only reason why no one has attacked us yet in the past 50 years. But what if I'm not here? Millions of inhabitants of the Belmont Kingdom would be massacred just so these bastards could feel good about themselves while boasting how they eradicated the evils of the world. His tone carried great resentment as he explained the founding reasons of this kingdom. But then, what are you hiding in this small kingdom of yours? Queried Vildred, the Lightning Dragon Emperor. Argos, on the other hand, slightly chuckled and responded, sometimes you have to create an illusion to hide another one. Create a fire to burn the evidence or mask an evil plot as a policy that would be hailed beneficial for the masses. He iterated as he got up from his throne. To the outside world, the Belmont Kingdom is a land of misfits and those who have been deemed as evil or blasphemous. But within the irksome existence lies a greater threat to all these empires, he said as he transported all of them into a secret area of the castle. Shwoom! In everyone's sight came a massive 10-meter-tall blue crystal that emanated an otherworldly energy. To Khan, it felt familiar but also mysterious at the same time. A part of him was drawn to this gigantic crystal floating in this room, but the remaining part was telling it to destroy it as soon as he could. Hold yourself for now. It's not the correct time to destroy it yet. Spoke Argos Belmont as if expecting Khan's reaction. Ruvak Untuyek Nvem Arakis, chanted the Vampire King. Rumble. Soon, the gigantic crystal started breaking and splitting itself periodically, creating the shape of a massive gate. And through this gate appeared a white translucent pathway. All right, let's see what this big secret is, spoke Khan as his group started walking through that white door. As a new realm was introduced to Khan and the allies, their entire body shook with sheer disbelief. Gasp! What is this place? Asked Khan. The entrance had led them over 1,000 kilometers high in the sky of this unknown realm. And with their sights as saints, everyone could see the details spread over this vast land. What appeared in front of them was an unknown civilization. Here, Khan and the company could see thousands of massive castles, temples, buildings, and districts. Khan was instantly reminded of Rathna, the capital of the Rocco's empire. However, things just didn't end there, because he saw millions of inhabitants varying from all the species he had come to know across all the empires he had been to so far. The sky itself was filled with thousands of flying vehicles in an orderly manner with checkposts supported by magic formations that acted like toll booths and maintained the air traffic. These ships themselves varied from those with passenger transportation, cargo ships, battleships, and a few ginormous warships that ranged up to 10 kilometers in length alone. Meanwhile, there were flying mounts like griffins, gargoyles, and bird-like monsters that spanned up to 500 meters as they spread their wings. Khan, with his multiple bloodlines, could tell that some of them were descendants of the god-beasts even if they had a minute trace of the bloodline. Yet the ginormous creatures were used as mere carriers for tourists or courier services. As their eyes focused below, the perfectly planned city map also revealed highly advanced cars and vehicles that used mana stones as the source to fly, and many people who couldn't inherently fly themselves had machines similar to jetpacks on their back, levitating perfectly as they also went about their lives. As for the architecture of the ginormous buildings that housed thousands of people of all races and species by each, resembled a lot from the different eras he was aware of. Byzantine, Romanesque, Gothic, Renaissance, Baroque, Rococo, Neo-Modernism and Parametricism. All these development and architectural styles blended perfectly in the form of 20 to 30-story buildings. But their presence didn't affect the nature. Rather, subtly planted gardens, playgrounds, and all forms of greenery also coexisted well with this modernized structure perfectly. One could even say that it carried the color and culture of various countries and civilizations that existed on Earth in a single city. And here I thought the capital we saw outside was multicultural and highly diversified. Despite all of this, everyone is perfectly following order and I don't see any form of issues. This place makes modern Earth look so primitive. He thought to himself. Would you believe this kind of place has been existing here under a combined governance of a monarchy, theocracy, and republic at the same time? Spoke the revenant sovereign with a playful tone. What? What nonsense is that? How come this place hasn't been burned to cinders yet? For a place like this to exist so peacefully, what exactly is this place? Asked Vildred, the lightning dragon emperor. Khan, Omega, and Rathnar also had their curiosity piqued to the point their ears enlarged just to hear the secret behind this realm. Welcome. Watching their fervent countenances, the vampire king lightly smirked and revealed the truth. To the Abyss Empire, the revenant sovereign finally unveiled the truth behind the mysterious existence of this unknown realm. It was none other than the supposedly obliterated Abyss Empire. What? Everyone gasped, their voices a chorus of bewilderment. Stunned, shocked, flabbergasted. These were the only words that encapsulated their disbelief upon hearing such a revelation. This has to be some kind of sick joke, Khan exclaimed, his voice tinged with utter incredulity. Even the god of darkness had assured Khan before his reincarnation that the Abyss Empire, once loyal to him, had been annihilated over 3 centuries ago. Lord Argos, this is beyond absurd, Khan muttered, his gaze fixed on the vampire king. His body trembled as he struggled to reconcile the claim with his known reality. The tension in the air was palpable, a suffocating blanket of uncertainty and fear. The others exchanged anxious glances, their minds reeling from the revelation. Then, Lucian, the golden-haired vampire saint, broke the silence. His voice was calm and steady, as though he were delivering an undeniable truth. It is true, young lord. This is the real Abyss Empire, he affirmed, his muscular frame exuding an aura of unwavering confidence. The words hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. Khan's mind raced, trying to piece together how this could be possible. He clenched his fists, the weight of the revelation pressing down on him. How could this empire, believed to be lost to the annals of history, still exist? And why here, of all places? Khan's thoughts spiraled, the enigma deepening with each passing moment. It is true, young lord. There is no reason for us to lie to you, spoke the golden-haired vampire. Lucian's calm demeanor seemed unshaken, as though he had anticipated this moment. His gaze never wavered, silently urging Khan to accept the truth that lay before him. The room fell into a heavy silence once more, as the weight of the past collided with the present, leaving everyone to grapple with the profound implications of the Abyss Empire's resurgence. Then why did the entire world of Vantria believe it was destroyed? Khan asked, his voice still laced with skepticism. To his probing question, it was the revenant sovereign who replied, his tone grave and deliberate. Because it was destroyed, he affirmed. However, there is a secret behind its simultaneous survival. Khan's brow furrowed as he tried to unravel the enigmatic words. What does that mean? Was it truly destroyed by the other empires? Or are you suggesting there were survivors? His voice was cautious, yet persistent. The revenant sovereign's expression remained inscrutable as he responded, It's more complicated than that. In due time you will learn the full story of what transpired, said Argos. But for now, he continued, his voice firm. You must meet certain groups of people first. Khan's curiosity deepened, but before he could question further, the vampire king interjected. It is time you gain the proper backing of an empire. With a swift gesture, the vampire king teleported them to another location, leaving no room for argument. Before Khan and his companions lay a grand hall, vast and imposing, with an air of ancient reverence. The walls were crafted from obsidian stones, their polished surfaces reflecting the dim light that flickered from ornate sconces. The furniture, a rich golden brown, exuded an aura of antiquity and power. At the center of the hall, dozens of priests knelt in fervent prayer. Their gray skin was partially obscured by black hoods, and their whispers merged into a haunting chant. Each word seemed to resonate within the cavernous space, echoing off the walls as if amplified by an unseen force. The object of their devotion stood at the far end, a towering statue of a grim reaper-like figure, shrouded in shadow and mystery. Above the statue loomed a cross, pierced diagonally by two swords. At the intersection of the blades, a skull rested ominously, its hollow eyes staring into the void. As Khan's gaze locked onto the skull, a chilling realization washed over him as he instantly recognized the shape of the skull. The god of darkness, he murmured, his voice barely audible, yet weighted with the gravity of the recognition. That is the insignia of the cult of the Darkborn, declared the vampire king. It was at that moment that the figure closest to the statue stirred. Rising slowly, her presence radiated an eerie and malevolent energy that sent a chill down Khan's spine. So, you've finally found him, great guardian. She spoke, her voice soft but carrying an undeniable, feminine charm. The words were like a whisper of poison, sending a tremor through Khan's entire being. I have child. Argos responded with a hint of satisfaction in his voice. I brought him here before introducing him to the other factions, since his grand welcome is to be arranged by you. He iterated. As if on cue, the woman's form began to shift, her aura intensifying as two massive raven-like wings unfurled from her back, dark and menacing. From the sides of her head sprouted two sharp, curved black horns, adding to her infernal appearance. Her skin, once cloaked in shadow, now glowed with an unsettling, almost ethereal light. Her long, lustrous black hair cascaded down her shoulders, and her eyes, vibrant, glowing red, pierced through the gloom with an intensity that seemed to burn. With a fluid motion, she shed her garb, revealing her true form. She wore crimson-red robes, dark as blood, and black gauntlets that gleamed with a dark sheen. Around her waist was a belt adorned with 5 small skulls, each one a grim token of her power and authority. The being standing before Khan and the others was unmistakably a succubus, her every movement exuding both elegance and lethal grace. Her cold, calculating gaze swept over the group, and her presence was nothing short of overwhelming. The air itself seemed to thicken as she spoke in a soft, yet soothing tone that belied the danger lurking beneath. It is an honor to finally meet you, my lord, she said, her voice smooth and almost hypnotic. I am the high priestess of the cult of the Darkborn. Her words lingered in the air, her gaze locking onto Khan as she introduced herself fully, her name echoing in the chamber. Morrigan Morningstar. The chamber suddenly turned dead silent for a dozen seconds, and soon, the priests who once had their faces turned towards the statue of God of Darkness turned back as they intently gazed at Khan. It's him. It's our Lord, the hero of darkness, shouted one of the priests. That's him. He looks exactly like the divine decree of our great God once projected to us. The great guardian has finally brought our Lord, chimed in another priest, removing his hood and revealing his snowy gray body and pointy ears. Soon, the entire chamber turned into a street bazaar, as all the high-ranked priests couldn't hide their surprise and excitement. The long-awaited arrival of their predestined chosen hero had finally come to reality. Soon, not only the priests but the people who also were currently residing inside this grand cathedral came after hearing the commotion. The moment they saw Argos Belmont, all of them kneeled vehemently. But as soon as they came to know about who Khan was, even those people lost their calm. Our God already foretold us of your arrival many years ago, but we had no means to leave this world while the only one who could look for you in the outside world was the great guardian. Spoke Morrigan. So the relics you had to track me down, said Khan and gazed at the vampire king. Explore hidden tales at Empire. Yes, I received them from the cult of the Darkborn, explained Argos. Ever since Khan became a first-stage saint, Argos had been tracking him. He even nearly found him in the Vulcan Empire and erased his tracks using those same relics. And now, it was finally unveiled that he had received help directly from the cult of the Darkborn. Argos then spoke, his voice resounding in the entire cathedral. Quell your joy and excitement for some time. No one outside should hear that I've brought the hero of darkness until we officially announce it. Commanded Argos. Everyone including Morrigan knelt and bowed their heads. We shall follow the will of the great guardian, announced the high priestess. Khan saw how revered the vampire king was in everyone's eyes. There must be a story behind why everyone calls him the great guardian. I also need to learn much about the cult of the Darkborn. Spoke Khan to himself. Let me escort you to a private place. I'm sure you're looking for answers yourself, my lord. Spoke Morrigan as her enchanting smile almost bedazzled Khan. I'm committed. Don't get taken aback by her beauty. Remember what your girlfriend said before you left her. Spoke Khan to himself as he resisted Morrigan's beguiling charms. Wait a minute. Why do you keep calling me my lord? I'm just a chosen hero, said Khan as he suspected those words. Oh, do you not know? As the hero of darkness, spoke Morrigan, the high priestess, as she revealed another important truth about Khan's position. You're the cult leader. Suddenly, Morrigan Morningstar, the high priestess of the cult of the Darkborn, dropped a startling revelation on Khan. As the hero of darkness, he wasn't merely a symbol of their cause. He was the official cult leader of the cult of the Darkborn. I am the what now? Khan exclaimed, his voice laced with shock and disbelief. That's how it is done in the Abyss Empire. Argos interjected, his smile reflecting a blend of amusement and understanding. Unlike in other empires, where the chosen hero or heroine serves as a mere representative or figurehead, the hero of darkness is, by default, the cult leader. Spoke Lucian in a reaffirming tone. Morrigan nodded in agreement, her expression serene yet serious. Yes, my lord. Every hero of darkness who came before you held this same esteemed position. Khan took a moment to absorb this new information, his mind racing with the implications of such a responsibility. He wasn't just a hero as per his previous assumptions and what he had seen with other heroes like Maximus and Ryukin. Rather, he was a leader, a figure of immense power and influence within the cult of the Darkborn. After addressing a few more of Khan's pressing questions, Morrigan began to explain the organizational structure and hierarchy of the cult, providing him with a clearer understanding of his newfound role. The highest authority within the cult of the Darkborn rests with the cult leader, the hero of darkness, Morrigan explained. No one can challenge your authority, and it operates independently of the other forces or factions within the Abyss Empire. She iterated with a prideful countenance. This time, it was the Revenant Sovereign who continued. In contrast, other empires like the Vulcan, Zivit, and Nader empires have a symbiotic relationship with the official institutions representing the gods they serve. For instance, the Fireborn royal family collaborates closely with the Church of Hetrax, the High Elves work alongside the Monastery of Life, and the true descendant clans maintain a similar alliance with the Temple of Nature. He explained in a regal tone. But in the Abyss Empire, Argos added, his voice resonating with a subtle pride. The cult of the Darkborn stands as a separate entity, wielding influence comparable to that of the imperial family. So you're not just some poster boy here. No, you're one of the three key figures of the empire. Khan felt the weight of his new position settle heavily on his shoulders. The realization that he was not just a player in a larger game but a central figure reshaped his understanding of his mission and his future. Thankfully, Khan already had plenty experience in managing such a prestigious role. Whether it was as the mercenary king, the chairman of Bloodborne, or the sovereign of Verlassen fiefdom. Soon, more information followed. In addition to the factions within the Abyss Empire, there was also the Senate of the Republic, a body where leaders chosen by the common populace voiced their opinions and wielded a fair amount of power. For any significant decision to pass, the approval of at least two factions was required to form a majority, a system designed to balance power and prevent any one group from becoming too dominant. This structure served as a crucial check, maintaining equilibrium among the three principal factions. However, within the cult of the Darkborn, the organizational structure diverged sharply from these more democratic institutions. Unlike religious hierarchies that featured a pope or cardinal, the cult had always been led by a high priestess. This position was not merely symbolic but was held by those who had devoted their lives entirely to the god of darkness, forsaking all worldly ties through a vow of celibacy. These devotees had undergone rigorous trials to prove their unwavering faith and commitment. I, Morrigan Morningstar, am the 73rd High Priestess of the Cult of the Darkborn, Morrigan stated with pride, her voice echoing with the weight of history. A role that has existed since the founding of the Abyss Empire over 10,000 years ago. The Cult of the Darkborn was unique in its practices and beliefs. Devotees were blessed based on their contributions and the sacrifices they offered to the god of darkness, who was also revered as the god of death in Vantria. These offerings ranged from livestock and blood rituals to the execution of criminals and traitors, acts that cemented their devotion and secured their place within the cult's hierarchy. Like the holy churches, the Cult of Darkness maintained an extensive network of churches, temples, altars, and cathedrals throughout the empire, wielding a theocratic power that was unrivaled. Their influence permeated every corner of society, from the nobility to the common folk. As Morrigan continued, she revealed a lesser-known truth to Khan, her expression growing more solemn. I assumed the role of High Priestess over a decade ago, and it was then that I uncovered a disturbing reality. We had been unable to connect with the god of darkness since a cataclysmic event over 3 centuries ago. Her eyes gleamed with fervent conviction as she added, however, 6 years ago, we received our first divine decree in centuries, a vision that showed us your face, my lord. Morrigan's zealous expression made it clear how eagerly she had awaited Khan's arrival, the culmination of years of devotion and anticipation. Khan, meanwhile, found himself drawing comparisons in his mind, analyzing the structure and operations of the Cult of the Darkborn against the other institutions he had encountered. Enjoy exclusive adventures from my virtual library empire. This feels strikingly similar to the demonic sect. Just as the cult leader in that setting was revered as a god by its members, I, as the hero of darkness, will be treated as the official spokesperson. To them, I am the absolute. Khan mused, drawing parallels between the two systems. How much authority do I have, and what kind? Khan asked, his voice steady and stoic, betraying no emotion. Morrigan clasped her hands together and bowed her head in reverence as if offering a prayer. Your command will be taken as the word of our Almighty, the God of Darkness. She replied with unwavering devotion. Khan blinked in surprise, taken aback by the sheer depth of their faith. Whoa, that's pretty much blind faith in a man you've just met, he said, his tone revealing his bafflement. The idea that his words would be accepted without question, solely because he was the hero of darkness, made him uneasy. In his previous experience, particularly when establishing the Misthios Mercenary Guild, he had to earn respect and prove himself as a capable leader before gaining the trust of his followers. This instant reverence was both new and unsettling. Morrigan's expression shifted slightly, her tone cautious as she posed a significant question. Do you wish to lead us into the war against the demon god under the banner of the god of darkness? I do. It is my life's mission already, responded Khan without a hint of hesitation. Morrigan's eyes narrowed, studying his resolve. Would you fight to protect the Abyss Empire if we were surrounded by enemy empires? She asked to test his priorities. Of course, that is already part of my responsibilities as the hero of darkness, said Khan firmly, his voice filled with conviction. Morrigan's lips curled into a smile, her eyes reflecting a mix of admiration and satisfaction. "Then our lives are yours to command," she declared, her words sealing the bond between Khan and the cult of the Darkborn. Soon, Morrigan elaborated on the intricate structure of the cult of the Darkborn, detailing the various roles held by its followers. The cult was a well-organized entity, with numerous cadres comprising priests and nuns who dedicated their lives to serving the god of darkness. Beyond these religious figures, there were also the adjudicators, stern arbiters of the cult's doctrines, and the Knight Legions who served as the militant arm of the cult. The enforcers upheld the laws and teachings, ensuring the followers adhered strictly to the sacred texts and decrees. However, Morrigan explained that the involvement of these cadres was primarily limited to matters directly related to the god of darkness. Their duties were essential in maintaining the sanctity and purity of their faith, especially in light of past incidents where the doctrine had been misused. "There have been instances," she explained, her tone grave, "where individuals went against the divine doctrine. Some were so fanatically devoted that they misinterpreted the teachings, leading to massacres and rituals that claimed innocent lives. Others, seeking to oppose the cult of the Darkborn, tried to establish their own religions, often resorting to violence to assert their beliefs on the masses," explained the priestess. "The cult of the Darkborn takes it upon itself not just to act as religious representatives, but also to ensure that the name of the god of darkness remains untarnished, both in prayer and in practice. We are vigilant against those who would misuse our teachings for personal gain or who distort the divine message to justify their heinous acts." Her composed yet determined voice resounded in the room. The balance they maintained between devout worship and strict enforcement was crucial to preserving the integrity of their faith. The cult's role extended beyond mere religious guidance. It was also a guardian of their sacred traditions, a bastion against corruption from within and attacks from outside. "Do you know the core chant of the cult of the Darkborn, my lord?" asked Morrigan. "No, because I had no exposure to it in the outside world. They chose to erase the existence of God of Darkness and the cult of the Darkborn 300 years ago," replied Khan with honesty. "Then please listen to it," spoke Morrigan as she preached the signature motto of the cult of the Darkborn. "Death comes to all, but overcoming the fear of death is the beginning of life. Death is fair to all. One can extend their lifetime but never avoid it," cited the high priestess. Her profound words then echoed in the room as she spoke the final verse of God of Darkness doctrine. "For death is inevitable, even to a god." As soon as Khan learned about the doctrine, his mind started racing. "For death is inevitable, even to a god." That was the last verse of the chant. And the biggest irony of this mantra or doctrine was that it came from the literal god of death. On the surface, it may sound stupid, because what kind of being who can die would be considered a god? But it's actually profound at the same time, because what God of Darkness is saying is that there exists an end to everything. To time, space, light, life, and finally even death, hypothesized Khan. It sounds grim and depressing, but it's a profound wisdom if you understand the true meaning. With that outlook, one's entire perception of their life and oneself can dramatically change. Spoke Khan, reaching his own conclusion. Morrigan, on the other hand, was stunned at first, but then an ecstatic smile came on her face as her entire countenance was filled with immense joy. "You understood all that after hearing it for the first time?" she asked with a joyful smile. "Can't help it. I'm just too smart," spoke Khan nonchalantly. Argos and Vildred rolled their eyes in exasperation. "Seriously, how do you even tolerate this moron, Sir Dragon?" asked the remnant sovereign to Vildred. "To be honest, I tried to kill him the moment I saw him. Shame that our fates are intertwined now," replied the Lightning Dragon Emperor. Only Khan had the audacity to call himself smart in front of two of the world's greatest geniuses. "They are also waiting for you. Many of them have been training for over a century themselves," said the High Priestess. "Who exactly are we talking about here?" questioned Khan. Morrigan then summoned a few High Priest robes for Khan, Omega, and Vildred. "Hide your appearances. "And follow me," said the high priestess in an almost excited tone. After a few minutes, their group departed for a different section of the capital via a flying cruiser-like vehicle. 10 minutes later, in the distance, a massive military fortress-like settlement came into view, stretching over 10 kilometers. It stood as a testament to the might and discipline of the cult of the Darkborn's forces. As they drew nearer, Khan's eyes widened at the sight of thousands of towering warriors, each belonging to various species but sharing one common trait: their immense size, with none standing shorter than 10 feet tall. The air was thick with the sound of intense sparring. These warriors engaged in brutal hand-to-hand combat, their bare bodies glistening with sweat and streaked with blood, their own and that of their opponents. The ground beneath them seemed to shake with the force of their clashes, each strike resonating with raw power and ferocity. Khan could immediately tell that these fighters were masters of close-quarter combat, their movements precise and lethal. "Why is everyone here so much larger than their counterparts of the same species?" asked Khan, his curiosity piqued by the sheer physicality of the warriors. Morrigan, standing beside him, offered an explanation. "These are the chosen warriors of the Darkborn," she began. "Each one has been meticulously selected from thousands of applicants when they were but children. They are not just physically strong. They possess an indomitable will to fight and survive, coupled with unshakable faith in the God of Darkness," stated Morrigan proudly. "Every warrior here has undergone numerous physique enhancement surgeries, designed to amplify their size and strength. Their training regimen is relentless, pushing them to the brink to forge them into formidable warriors of darkness." Morrigan's tone turned slightly somber as she added, "Though the enhancements they've undergone prevent many from ascending to the saint rank, they remain incredibly powerful. As a result, we don't have many saints among them, but these modifications have made them the ultimate soldiers. At least 80% of them are at the peak Grandmaster rank." Her voice chimed like a melody to Khan's ears. She paused, allowing Khan to take in the enormity of what she was saying before continuing. "Currently, we boast over 5,000 semi-saints within our ranks, and every chapter master is a saint themselves." She dropped the nuke. These fighters were more than just soldiers. They were living weapons, honed to perfection through rigorous training and unwavering faith. "How many chapters are there of these legions?" asked Khan in a stern tone, his expression turning serious. Morrigan smiled at this question and slightly bowed as she explained, "There are 40 chapters. Each chapter has 1,000 members, and their loyalty extends only to the cult of Darkborn, and as our de facto leader, to you," declared Morrigan. "Son of a bit, doesn't that mean I have an army that can fight an empire on its own? These 40,000 death machines are more than enough to destroy any enemy force under the suns. Plus I get to command 40 saints as my underlings? That's broken as hell," thought Khan as he couldn't hide his surprise. "I thought I was going to get dragged into the same nonsense as other heroes. But instead, I've been given a terrifying warhammer," said Khan inwardly, elated from this fortune. The tour continued through the vast fortress, with Khan and Morrigan moving under their assumed identities. They passed through various training grounds, observing the warriors honing their skills. Some practiced with swords and shields, some used claws, massive clubs, and battle axes, their strikes precise and powerful, while others trained with an array of firearms, ranging from flamethrowers, rifles, bolters, and machine guns, demonstrating a mastery of both ancient and modern combat techniques. The warriors, clad in pitch-black armor, stood out not just for their sheer size, ranging from 3 to 5 meters tall, but also for the intimidating presence their armor lent them. In their towering forms, they made ordinary people seem puny, like dwarves in comparison. As they walked, Khan overheard a conversation between 3 warriors, their voices filled with anticipation and a hint of tension. "I wonder when they will find our lord," mused a tall, bald black man, his tone thoughtful yet tinged with doubt. "Sometimes, I think our Lord might not share the same level of devotion to the God of Darkness as we do." His words drew a sharp response from a golden-haired man with Asian features. "Is that heresy I detect in your tone, brother?" he asked, his voice carrying a hint of challenge. The bald man frowned, not willing to let the remark pass unchecked. "Do not mock my concerns in such a way, brother. I have bled for over a century and fought tirelessly with the hope of serving the will of our destined leader. The day he comes to us will be the moment I gladly follow his command to purge those heretics in the outside world," retorted the first warrior. Before the tension could escalate further, a short, brown-haired man with piercing blue eyes intervened. His voice was calm but authoritative, seeking to restore order. "Enough! Such thoughts should not even enter our minds, brothers. It is obvious that the cult leader will be a beacon of hope and the greatest believer in our mighty God, as he is the chosen one. Our duty is to be worthy to serve him in his conquest to save the world and purge the fanatics who forced our ancestors into hiding," he continued, his words imbued with a rallying fervor. "Now that the time for the Great War approaches, we must be in top form to fight. Remember, the enemy lies outside, not within us," spoke this man who seemed their superior by rank. Khan, observing this exchange, was momentarily taken aback by the intensity of their faith and their willingness to follow him, despite never having met him. "Why do these three seem so familiar?" Khan pondered, a hint of nostalgia creeping in. "I think I remember playing a video game with characters like these in it." Morrigan soon led Khan to another facility 20 kilometers away, a place that exuded a sense of unyielding power and military might. After half an hour of walking, they arrived at an enormous training ground, where a formidable battalion of armored troops stood in perfect formation. Surrounding them were hundreds of tanks, each one a colossal machine of war, ready to unleash destruction upon command. Above, the sky was filled with the ominous presence of dozens of warships, each stretching at least 5 kilometers in length. These behemoths hovered menacingly, casting long shadows over the battlefield below. "All of them count as just one base," Morrigan said, her voice calm yet filled with pride. "There are plenty more like it spread across the empire." Khan's eyes darted over the soldiers, taking in every detail of their gear and demeanor. A peculiar feature stood out. Each warrior bore the insignia of the god of darkness on their shoulders. In the center of their pitch-black armor was a dark red emblem, flanked by 2 vampire wings and featuring a stark white skull in the middle, symbolizing death and darkness. The armor was equipped with advanced technology, jetpacks on their backs and boosters integrated into their boots. These enhancements allowed them to leap great heights and maneuver with the agility that defied their massive forms. What unified them all, Khan noticed, was their elemental affinity for darkness. It was the common thread that bound this army together, an intrinsic part of their being that powered their every action. Khan couldn't help but imagine this formidable force of 40,000 warriors fighting under his leadership, their might unleashed upon the battlefield. The sheer potential for destruction and domination was both thrilling and daunting. "What are they called?" he asked, his curiosity piqued by the sight of such an overwhelming force. "Each chapter has its own distinct name and specialization. They focus on different tasks, weapons, powers, and combat styles, each following its unique codex." She paused, letting the anticipation build before delivering the name with reverence. "However, collectively, we call them," replied Morrigan as she smiled knowingly, ready to reveal the name of this unparalleled army. "The Doom Templars." After hearing the name of the force that would serve under his command, Khan was perplexed. The very fact that they had the word Doom in their official name alone indicated what purpose they stood for. "They are not the only ones, my lord. Many other legions have different purposes of their own. The Ritualist's cadre also specializes in using magic and various curses. Some of them can even put hexes on enemies from very far away as long as they have enough information. We have Seer Odyssey, a legion of nuns that can see glimpses of future events and guide our strategies in war if needed. Some of them can even convey top-secret messages to our forces thousands of kilometers away using Whispers of the Dead ability," iterated Morrigan proudly. She knew that Khan would be taken aback after hearing the extent of their forces. and Khan was indeed taken aback. "How many capable warriors does the cult of Darkborn have?" he asked in a serious tone. "Over 25 million, give or take. And there are over 3 billion followers across the whole Abyss Empire," revealed the High Priestess. "Over how many?" exclaimed Khan again in bewilderment. "Just how big is the population of the Abyss Empire?" asked Khan again. "It's over 5.68 billion, young lord," revealed Lucian, the golden-haired vampire. "Excuse me, are you for real?" he asked again in disbelief. It was then the Revenant Sovereign chimed in and explained, "You have to understand, Khan. The Abyss Empire has been secluded for the past 300 years. It hasn't been at war with other empires, and the only wars that have happened, they were all civil wars." Soon Morrigan also explained a few more things. "My lord, there was a time when one of my predecessors tried to take over the empire using the cult of Darkborn, by using the name of our almighty god of darkness. Her resurgence flamed the empire for decades until the war stopped with the Doom Templars turning against her after her lies were revealed. The same thing happened 200 years ago with the imperial family, where one of the previous emperors tried to unify the whole empire under the royalists. That civil war was stopped by the cult of Darkborn, and the rebel forces formed among the normal civilians. Just 70 years ago, the newly formed Senate of the Republic also tried to take over the empire. The imperial family and nobles were almost wiped out during that era. The only mistake they made was turning their eyes on us during those civil wars. And since the majority of our believers are from the common population, it fell from within. The royal family rebuilds itself under the reign of the current emperor," iterated the High Priestess. "One way or another, the Abyss Empire had to go through a lot of bloodshed to form the current equilibrium we have now. The peace we have came at a great price, and since we were without a leader, we decided that the cult would not engage in any wars or political matters until you arrive," spoke Morrigan softly. "And just 20 years ago, I came to find the crystal, the gateway to this realm. By then, I already had established the Belmont Kingdom. So I've been safeguarding it while waiting for the arrival of the next hero of darkness," explained Argos, shedding light on his part in this paradigm. Khan then leaned back and started contemplating a few things on his own. "Based on what the Martial Emperor, I have nearly 6 months left till the Great War officially starts. Till then, I have to create my forces within Sparta. My subordinates will handle that. I have over 20 million monsters and warriors as part of my legion. Sparta will have 10 million capable fighters, and Cult of Darkborn will have 25 million people under my command. That's 55 million under my leadership. And once I use my divine ability in large-scale wars, I will have even more warriors under my arsenal. But the main question is, will that be enough?" wondered Khan as he contemplated. "I will need to form strategies and gain everyone's utmost respect and unwavering loyalty. Plus, there's also the Imperial family and the Senate of Republic that might become a hindrance to my command once the Great War starts. The next 6 months will be testing me not only as a hero or a leader, but also a war general," he concluded. Soon, a mischievous smirk appeared on Khan's face. "So finally the time has come for me to utilize everything I've learned from Master Romulus Musashi-sensei and my own experience. There's also Rathnar, who has the highest military experience, and there's also the Revenant Sovereign as our biggest cannon. Since he has declared himself as the official representative of the God of Darkness, he is basically our leader in the Great War. So my biggest challenge would be leading these forces with the least casualties while turning the war in our favor," he hypothesized. "All right, I understand, but I have a few more questions. Tell me everything you know about the Imperial family and the Senate," he spoke in a firm tone. Soon, another detailed conversation ensued. The current Imperial family is not very favorable towards the cult of Darkborn, mainly being the cult becoming a big threat in the past 3 centuries. After the Abyss Empire was sealed here, there was no word from God of Darkness. So they weren't receiving the benefits of alleging themselves with our God anymore like the other empires in the outside world. Although the empire itself is big enough to easily provide resources for all of its inhabitants and sustain their livelihoods without needing the reliance on just one force, those in power always seek war and glory. Mostly because they want to leave their name and have a legacy, explained Morrigan with an exasperated countenance. Ah, the usual, I'm gonna wage a war because I'm bored energy. Seriously, that's why I hate these royalists and nobles. These bitches think they own the world because they're born into some superficial self-proclaimed noble bloodline or elite part of the monarchical rule. This entitlement is the same no matter which world you go to. That is why I prefer meritocracy even over democracy. Because in the end, even the leaders chosen by the masses are just the popular kids in the high school. Khan spoke his honest opinion. If only there was a way to control all this nonsense and do the best thing to preserve order. He said and sighed. Easy there, our future dictator. Spoke Argos. I get it. There's no easy way around. So do you think the imperial family and these nobles would oppose my arrival? Asked Khan. Argos quickly interjected and explained his own opinion. This is our prime concern. This was the exact reason why I brought you here in secrecy to meet the High Priestess first. Also, there is a big problem going on in both the other two factions. And what are those problems? Asked Khan as he looked around the Vampire King and the Succubus Priestess. First, the imperial family is currently going through a succession war. Because the emperor went into a coma 2 years ago. And ever since then, his children have been fighting a shadow war among their factions. Many potential successors have either been forced to forfeit or simply eliminated under various suspicious circumstances. Revealed Morrigan. Currently, the strongest claim lies with the first and the third prince, along with the fourth princess who recently ousted her elder sisters using cunning politics. Simply put, they are having their own civil war as we speak. Explained Morrigan. Secondly, the Senate of the Republic isn't doing well either, because there have been hundreds of instances of massive corruption within governmental organizations that they have authority over. These people are playing their own games of elitism trying to lead the common population. They are no better than vultures who rot the system, create the problem, and then suddenly present a cure while acting like the savior of the masses. This is no better than those damn royalists and nobles. Elaborated the High Priestess. This time it was Vildred, the sage of preservation, who spoke. The Dragon Empire faced such issues in the past as well. One of the emperors in history made a vital decision that has still kept the empire unified in the past few million years. Ever since then, there have been no civil wars or infighting between factions. But I'm afraid you won't like my idea. Spoke the Lightning Emperor. We can entertain the thought, Sir Dragon, said Argos. Khan, Omega, Lucian, and Morrigan then tilted their heads and keenly tried to hear the answer that would solve all of their problems. Sigh. It's simple. Villard sighed and revealed the ancient and most effective way to overcome their current dilemma. Just purge enemies without mercy, or exceptions. Vildred laid out the idea, a method that was tried and tested in the almighty Dragon Empire that would solve all of their problems. However, the plan involved a merciless genocide, a thought that shook the atmosphere of the room. Even the Revenant Sovereign, a ninth-stage saint, was shocked when he heard the proposition. Khan, Omega, Lucian, and Morrigan were no exception to this surprise. Ah, that seems a little excessive, don't you think? He asked Vildred. I know. Plus the aftermath will take some time to settle in because people are always averse to change in the initial period, even if that change is for their good. Iterated Vildred in a calm but despondent tone. Well, it is indeed an effective way, but the backlash would be terrifying. Also, it would destabilize the whole empire, and we don't have years to wait for the new government to get everything under order, said Khan in a contemplative tone. How many saints does the imperial side have? He asked Morrigan. So far, we know of the 71 saints. Some are also known to hide their original rank. There are also 41 saints appointed by the Senate that have high positions in their organizations. Revealed the High Priestess. Wow, counting ones from the cult. That's at least 152 saints in just this empire. Even Rocco's empire had 120 at maximum, said Khan. Help me understand how all the three mediums of powers rule this nation together? He queried. The nobles and royals still own plenty of territory like in the past. However, the people living in those territories are no longer the subjects of the nobles such as barons, counts, or dukes. Every person is a citizen of the empire by law and no one owns anyone. Even the nobles are kept in check and all their servants or forces are employed through legal means. The knights and saints, however, maintain the right to employ these powerhouses with their own wealth and aren't obligated to reveal their fees. As for the Senate, they are dependent on their nobles' houses and royals to pay taxes and also allow the territory to be used for tasks such as mining, farming, and harvesting natural resources. The Senate has to pay these local lords like one has to pay a landlord to live in a house. There are also a lot of concessions and tax exemptions given. Also that people can have jobs and the economy flows without trouble. Explained the succubus. Then how does the cult come into this codependent government? Questioned Khan skeptically. Well, at the core, people still have faith in the cult since our culture and tradition remained unshaken. Also, the cult and all of the institutions such as monasteries, temples, and cathedrals are places of worship and religious beliefs. So they are also exempt from many forms of taxes and laws. Because there have been times when both the royals and the Senate tried to subject us to those rules. As a result, the whole empire turned against them. Because in the end, what nation could have its own identity without culture and beliefs? A place that is home to all is home to none. Spoke the high priestess, her tone filled with grace. Well, I can agree to that. No matter how multicultural a nation wants to be, it loses its own existence when people do not have the faith or religion that ties them to their homeland. One must have roots in their nation, otherwise, who would fight to protect it? Responded Khan. Khan had an unrestrained mindset that would get him cancelled in the modern world of Earth. But he felt no fear in expressing his honest opinion. Correct. And the cult also has the authority to mete out justice when innocent lives are harmed in the name of religious conflicts. We're not just enforcers of God of Darkness, but we also protect the very essence of the Abyss Empire. Iterated Morrigan proudly. Even though he was an atheist on Earth, Khan did not underestimate the importance of values, beliefs, religion, and culture. He just didn't like it when people went around killing other people just because their core outlook on these things was different. So in the end, everyone is in power while no one is truly in power. Am I correct? Asked Khan. Yes, because unlike other empires, even if you have powerful saints, the other two sides have the means to overthrow you, and people are the most important part of the reign. Even gods need people to worship and follow them. Spoke Argos in a pragmatic tone as he continued, because even a god cannot hold a territory, but people can. He declared in an authoritative tone. The room turned dead silent because no matter how they looked at it, they wouldn't have a justifiable cause to control the narrative. Because even when the Great War was to begin, there would be a lot of opposition from within their own house. Even Khan with his undead legion of summoned monsters, the forces of Sparta, and now the cult of Darkborn, knew that it would not be enough to compete on even grounds with the others. Hell, even these established empires with thousands of years of history were not confident in themselves, thus forming an alliance under the pretext of hunting the new hero of darkness. So unless Khan solved this issue and unified the Abyss Empire in one banner, their involvement would be futile and bring them nothing but defeat and meaningless loss of life. I have few plans and strategies to overthrow all of our opposition in a matter of months. However, it will be a bloody mess as well, and regardless of how much public support we have, it won't be a unified nation after I'm done. That's why I propose a different idea. Spoke Khan as a devilish smirk appeared on his face. Since we need the majority of at least two main governing factions of the empire to lead the people during the upcoming war, spoke Khan as he proposed an idea. How about we take over the Senate as well? He spoke. What? Would that even be possible? It's not like we're taking over the position of some village chief and the bare necessary vote would be enough. And we're talking about leading the empire into a war here. There will be millions of lives lost since even a chosen hero like yourself cannot be present everywhere. Even I, as one of the four sovereigns, couldn't do that despite my strength. Did you think I haven't had such ideas despite both my strength and experience in governing a whole kingdom? Admonished Argos, making a sound criticism of Khan's idea. You are indeed correct about that, Sir Argos. But your means of reign and authority comes from either exerting strength or getting the support of the people through acknowledgement. My idea, however, has a different approach. Although it may seem difficult, as long as I have the full support of every person present here, it can work. He spoke. Is that so? Then what is this ingenious plan of yours? Mind explaining that? Asked the Revenant Sovereign. All right then, listen. For the next hour, Khan explained his deliberate plan with every step in detail. The more everyone in the room heard about it, the more questions arose as they made their queries. However, Khan had the answers and the best solution to overcome all the possible hurdles and unfavorable circumstances. And finally, after all of them were done, the room now had a completely different atmosphere compared to an hour ago. Instead of being gloomy and pessimistic, now all of them were rather hopeful and excited. Morrigan's face was flushed red with questionable excitement as she kept glancing at Khan and then averting her eyes with a smile. Argos and Lucian had bewildered countenances despite having far more experience than Khan as saints and people in authority. Omega was proud of his master as usual. Vildred casually sipped the tea while trying to hide his grin as if saying, "That's expected of my disciple. Kid, I've taught you well." Spoke Rathnar in Khan's mind. "Shut up, you old coot. You didn't teach me anything," retorted Khan, rolling his eyes at the Peak Saint's shamelessness. It was then Lucian and Argos spoke telepathically. "My lord, it's good that the young lord is on our side and not one of the other empires. How can we fall short compared to a young man like this despite our age and wisdom? It's as if he has experience in toppling empires and flipping over the government again and again, over and over," said the burly and muscular golden-haired vampire. "You are right. Maybe just his own experience or the perspective he has over the authority and the common people. He thought of 10 steps ahead in just a few minutes and has backup plans even for his backup plans. No matter how I feel about this strategy. One thing is for sure," replied Argos Belmont, the Revenant Sovereign of Vantria. "This man is diabolical. One of the strongest saints in Vantria, a figure of immense power and respect, found himself nearly overwhelmed with a mix of terror and bewilderment upon hearing Khan's elaborate plan. The sheer intricacy and the ruthless brilliance of the strategy painted Khan in a new light, one that was far from the conventional image of a hero. To the saint, Khan seemed more like a diabolical mastermind than a savior. It wasn't that the saint couldn't devise a similar plan if he exerted all his mental faculties. He was well aware that such a scheme was within the realm of possibility. However, the implications of executing such an approach were daunting. The saint understood that implementing a plan of this magnitude would inevitably lead to an escalation beyond anyone's control, causing ripples that could potentially reshape the entire political and social landscape of the Abyss Empire. Yet, here was Khan, the one he had sworn to support solely to advance his own goals, presenting strategies that not only matched but exceeded his imagination. The saint couldn't help but feel a sense of unease, recognizing that Khan's mind operated on a level of cunning and foresight that he hadn't anticipated. To come up with such a thing, well, if it works as intended even in the early stages, we'd have the entire empire in our grasp. The Revenant Sovereign mused, his voice laced with both admiration and a hint of fear. To think you'd use the system to destroy itself. That's indeed very cunning. A very unheroic move, but undeniably effective. Khan responded with a calm, calculated tone, reflecting his confidence in the plan. It's precisely because of the current structure that I can make it work. If it were a simple monarchy, technocracy, or democratic republic, most of these plans would fail. But the instability of the equilibrium between the three factions is what we can exploit for long-term gain," said Khan with a sardonic smile. "We must begin as soon as possible. When the time is right, we will finally reveal the Abyss Empire to the outside world." As Khan uttered these final words, both Argos and Lucian, who had been listening intently, stopped in their tracks. The gravity of Khan's statement hit them hard, the weight of the impending revelation and its potential consequences settling heavily on their shoulders. The High Priestess, Morrigan Morningstar, was no exception to this sudden shift in expressions. "About that, we have few things that we need to do first," spoke the succubus priestess. "Like what?" asked Khan, slightly curious. "I assume you know the function of the divine keys, right?" asked Morrigan. Khan's ears perked as soon as he heard her question. "Yes. I'm told that it's what connects me to my divine weapon itself. But I have no idea of how to awaken it or where the weapon is. Since you're the official followers of God of Darkness, you must have the means to do it, right?" said and queried Khan. "That we do. However, there's a big problem," responded Morrigan, and her expression turned dejected. "To do so, we need to venture to a very dangerous place," she revealed. Now, it was the Vampire King who spoke in a calm but hesitant tone. "I planned to take you there the very day I found you. But meeting the sixth hero of space and forging an alliance with the Empire of Space could not be delayed, so I had no choice but to postpone my plans. The thing with the awakening procedure is that it cannot be done here," he expressed with a tone filled with concern. "Why? It's the Abyss Empire, isn't it?" asked Khan, his eyes filled with skepticism. "It is. But there is only one place where the actual awakening of the divine key can be performed. And as the High Priestess of the cult of Darkborn, I can do it myself. However, the problem isn't the procedure, but where we have to go to do it." She spoke with an exasperated tone, as if losing her will to do it. "And that place is somewhere even I have no confidence in returning alive from. It doesn't matter if I'm a ninth stage saint or you are a chosen hero with divine abilities. Back when I found your traces in the Vulcan Empire after your fight with the Hero of Fire, I met Emperor Havi Hos Siegfried. He chose to become our ally, and I told him that once I find you, I'll take you to that place. Even the Fireborn Emperor told me that we won't have much chance to survive there. The only people who can go there now and hope to return alive are demigods," revealed the Revenant Sovereign with incredulous expression. "Oh, don't tell me it's that place," said Khan as he could get a hint from their words. "Seriously, it had to be that place, huh?" Even Vildred, the Lightning Dragon Emperor, was concerned. "It was good knowing you, kid. Please let me take over someone else's soul before you go there to die," said Rathnar. "Master, what are they talking about?" asked Omega, confused after seeing these different reactions. "Sigh. It's a place you and I are very familiar with. It's your birthplace to be exact," responded Khan as his shoulders slouched. "Which place is that? I don't have many memories until I evolved into a Leakin," said Omega, still clueless. "The place where the strongest monsters in the entirety of Vantria reside. The place where no empire dared to venture. Some call it the eternal land of desolation, while others call it the gathering place of the godbeasts. It's the place of my beginning in Vantria as Hero of Darkness, the Abyss Forest," revealed Khan. In just a few moments, even Omega joined them and grabbed his head in denial. "We're doomed," said Khan. "Royally," said Vildred. "Exclusively," said Argos. "And from sideways," said Rathnar. After a dozen minutes of contemplation, they started gathering their thoughts. "And why do we have to go to that particular place again? Why can't it be done here instead?" asked Khan to Morrigan. "Because the Grand Cathedral you saw before is just a replica of the original. The main altar that allows the process needs to be the one containing a shard of eminence granted by our holy god of darkness himself. All the other empires have similar altars where they awakened their respective hero/heroines' divine keys. But the Abyss Empire was sealed here under dire circumstances. Also, even if the original Grand Cathedral was brought here somehow, due to its severed connection to Vantria, it would not have worked. Since it's a one-time connection, our ancestors couldn't bring it here in hopes that once we go back to the original world, it would work again. Thus, it was left there, hidden from the rest of the empires in hopes that once a new hero came, we could have a chance to awaken the divine key," explained Morrigan in detail. All that risk just to awaken the divine key, and for what?" So I could use the divine weapon that I have no idea where it is? Spoke Khan, snarling in exasperation. It was right then. I have it, said Argos. What? Asked Khan and turned his head around in surprise. Yes, I've been safekeeping it as well, but I can't even bring it to the Abyss Empire. I've guarded it in the Belmont Kingdom so far, and if you go near it without your divine key still unawakened, it will kill you, revealed the Vampire King in a somber voice. And why is that? I already have Amaterasu, the divine weapon of the hero of fire. It hasn't shown any hostility to me, said Khan. That's because the hero of fire's divine key was already awakened when you fought and killed him. Even Amaterasu would have killed him if he dared approach it without having his divine key awakened first. Explained Argos. He is correct, my contractor. It is a rule established long ago. Because if there's no awakening, someone can take advantage of just killing the summoned hero or heroine and use their divine key to control us. Consider it as a safety measure, said Amaterasu, who usually kept quiet even when Khan was fighting a battle to the death. I see. So how long could it take if we depart as soon as we can? Queried Khan. If it was just me alone and you were below a 5th stage saint rank, maybe a year. But given our current entourage, 1 month should suffice, said the Vampire King. And what of the path? Asked Khan. There are 3 paths we can take. One is through the Empire of Sentience. The other is through the Dragon Empire. As for the last one, I think you already know, spoke the Revenant Sovereign. Khan was stunned as soon as he heard the possible routes. Empire of Sentience isn't a hidden ally like the Empire of Space or the Empire of Fire, and we are currently too weak to punch our way through the Dragon Empire, said Khan as he looked at Vildred. The Sage of Preservation, his master, nodded and spoke. You do not need to worry about our pact, because we both are currently too weak to do anything there even with a sovereign on our side. Although I can guide our way through, the risk is simply too much, spoke the Lightning Dragon Emperor. Although I can request a passage from the Elder Dragon, Balteras, it would take us years to just get a reply, said Argos. Then it leaves us no other choice, said Omega. Shock. It was right then, Khan remembered something the future Khan aka the Martial Emperor had him promise. A visible smile appeared on Khan's face as he spoke in a confident tone. It's all coming back to where it all began. Omega, Old Man Rathnar. Looks like we're going back home, spoke Khan with a determined countenance. We're going to the Rocco's Empire. Khan and his group gathered around, their minds focused on crafting a strategy that would allow them to move forward with their ambitious plans. The first step involved using the No Man's Land, a desolate and unclaimed area at the intersection of the 3 major empires. First, we'll need to use the No Man's Land at the intersection of the 3 empires. Khan began, his tone decisive. Even if any of them manage to detect us, they'll have to act cautiously. That slight delay will be all we need to infiltrate the Rocco's Empire. He continued in a calm tone. We can't afford to be seen. Why is that? Lucian, intrigued but cautious, raised a question. Khan met his gaze, a knowing smirk playing on his lips. Because, technically, I'm proclaimed dead there. He then delved into the story of his time in the Rocco's Empire, explaining how he had faked his death after binding Rathnar to his soul through a soul oath. This act wasn't merely for survival. It was a calculated move to disrupt the noble factions that had tried to undermine him. As a result, his supposed death triggered a chain reaction that led to the complete overthrow of the existing government, sparking the most significant reform in the Empire's 1,000-year history. Ah, so you do have experience in toppling authority, Argos commented, a hint of admiration mixed with amusement in his voice. Argos, ever the observer, added with a raised brow, aren't you also supposed to be dead in the Vulcan Empire? Technically, I'm not. I'm just a missing person. The Emperor and the Princess agreed to cover my whereabouts after the battle with the Hero of Fire. They knew that the Inquisitors would come searching for me. With the risk that they could also turn their attention to the Rocco's Empire, the Emperor suggested that the name Khan Salvatore should never be brought into the limelight. Clarified Khan. The vampire king then spoke, letting his words sink in before continuing. But that shouldn't concern us anymore. The empires serving gods know of my name and appearance. The Rocco's empire, much like the Dragon Empire, is one of the neutral empires. Although other empires can't afford to provoke them, I can easily handle that problem. However, Argo's expression darkened as he addressed the real issue at hand. The problem is that if we move too openly, the other empires might catch wind of our whereabouts. The group fell silent, absorbing the gravity of the situation. The stakes were high, and any misstep could lead to disastrous consequences. They'd already be vigilant of our moves, so it's an unnecessary risk. Argos pointed out, his tone firm. Khan, however, dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. What's there to be afraid of? The Vulcan Empire is a hidden ally. I have my forces in the Zivit Empire as the mercenary king. And the Rocco's Empire wouldn't let the Elven Empire even touch their borders. What can these other empires do? Follow us into the Abyss Forest? They'd become a meal for the god beasts there. Even they know that. At that moment, Rathnar's voice echoed within Khan's mind, calm and calculating. The government in Rocco's must have barely stabilized. Although I doubt any true supporters of the imperial family remain, we still have ways to incite another wave of chaos there. Proposed the ancient peak saint. Khan's eyes widened in surprise. What? Why would we do that? This is supposed to be a quick tour. I only have 6 months to gain control over the Abyss Empire. Why would we need to cause another upheaval in the Rocco's Empire? He asked with genuine surprise. Think about it, everyone. As you said, there will come a time when the Abyss Empire must be revealed to the world. But where will we displace it? The original land is now the den of god beasts. The population here can't be completely migrated and will need a new home. Rathnar's tone was patient, almost didactic. He continued, laying out his strategy. Unless we find a way to kill all the god beasts, we are in dire need of a new place to settle and allies who can provide us with resources. Since the Vulcan Empire is already an ally, adding the Rocco's Empire as a supporter would give us the biggest alliance of the present era. An alliance not just in name but in practice. Khan's mind raced as he considered Rathnar's words. The plan was audacious, certainly, but the logic was undeniable. Establishing such a powerful alliance could indeed ensure the Abyss Empire's prosperity when it re-emerged into the world. Argos, observing the shift in Khan's expression, nodded slightly. It's a bold move, but it might be what we need to ensure our future. Khan sighed, the weight of the situation settling on his shoulders. Rathnar's voice carried a mischievous undertone. And since we also have a sovereign with us, how about we take care of that as well? Khan's eyes lit up as he caught on to Rathnar's suggestion. Are we thinking about the same thing? He asked, his mind already racing with possibilities. We can delay it, but things won't be as favorable in the future. I know where to go. This lizard here is good at magic, the vampire is strong enough to protect us, and you're almost qualified to enter there as well. This is the best opportunity we will have unless you want to wait another 5 to 6 years. Rathnar proclaimed, his tone resolute. Khan nodded, a plan forming in his mind. Then let's do all of those things. It may delay us by a month or 2, but if we can get those 3 things done, we won't have to worry about a lot of things once the Great War finally starts. With this bold proclamation, the group settled into a detailed discussion, refining their strategies and plotting their next moves. The atmosphere was charged with a newfound confidence as Khan realized the full extent of the resources and allies at his disposal. Gone were the days of subterfuge and secrecy. Khan was no longer the cautious upstart of Vantria. Now, with allies, formidable forces, and a wealth of experience, he was prepared to charge into the battlefield without hesitation, ready to claim victory with every advantage at his command. The following day, let's leave. Until we return, the others from the priest cadre will handle the cult and the Doom Templars. Many won't even realize that I'm not inside the Abyss Empire anymore. Spoke Morrigan, the High Priestess. As for any trouble that might occur, we have a big contingency ready already. spoke the succubus as she looked in a certain direction. Well then, I wish you all luck, spoke Lucian, the person Morrigan was looking at. Huh? What do you mean? Aren't you coming with us? Asked Khan with a confused expression. I wish I could, but I can't, responded the burly golden-haired vampire. And why is that? Asked Khan. Right then, it was Argos who replied in his stead. Because only one inhabitant of the sealed Abyss Empire is allowed to exit the crystal at a time, revealed the sovereign. What? Sir Lucian is a native of the Abyss Empire? Exclaimed Khan with surprise. Yes, he has his own story, but it's better to leave it for later. In her absence, Lucian is strong enough to maintain the cult of Darkborn by himself, said Argos. Khan's mind jumbled again. How strong are you then, Miss Morrigan? Asked Khan as he looked at the high priestess with widened eyes. I'm a 7th stage saint myself, my lord, revealed the succubus. I see. Looks like I should ask important questions first, said Khan as he resigned himself to the situation. Soon, they secretly departed while leaving Lucian behind. Using a spell known only to Argos, the group exited the massive crystal gateway and appeared back in the Belmont Kingdom. Argos then led everyone back to the Bran Castle, his flying behemoth of an accommodation. Meanwhile, in the Abyss Empire, Lucian appeared in a solitary site that resembled a place of worship among the devotees. However, only a few were allowed to enter. In a grand hall of this building was a 3-meter-tall statue of a warrior with a sword, posing like a knight. Lucian, the peak 7th stage saint, knelt respectfully in front of the statue and started praying with his eyes closed. We have found the new hero of darkness. Lord Argos is leading him to the original altar of God of Darkness to awaken his divine key. After he returns, we will bring him here, and then he will learn the truth about everything. He spoke in a vehement tone, but the very next moment, the statue started shaking as a voice resounded in the praying hall. As expected of you, Lucian Varangius, I never doubted giving this important role to you, since you are. A grim voice echoed as the statue revealed, the last descendant of Cravel Varangius, the war deity. 2 weeks later, rumble. The skies above the desolate no-man's land roared with ominous power as the imposing, eerie grandeur of Bran Castle materialized. Its dark spires pierced the heavens like silent sentinels, emerging from the shadows of the protective barriers that had concealed it during the journey. The entire structure emanated a blend of majesty and foreboding, an emblem of both power and mystery. Inside the grand halls, Argos, the vampire king, broke the silence. So, how are you planning to announce your reappearance in the Rocco's empire? His crimson eyes gleamed with curiosity and subtle amusement. Khan stood by a tall, arched window, his gaze fixed on the lands below. I have a few subordinates still embedded in this empire. They've carved out positions of power and influence. For now, I need to operate covertly. Moving my pieces behind the scenes before anyone even suspects my presence is crucial to the plan. Suddenly, shudder. The mighty castle trembled slightly as alarms echoed from the watchtowers stationed at each of its 4 corners. It seems we've been noticed, Argos said, his tone calm but serious. As we anticipated, the Zivit Empire will send an envoy soon. The Vulcan Empire already knows of our presence. I informed the Fireborn Emperor during our journey. That leaves the Rocco's Empire. They're bound to send their chief general and a few saints to investigate. Argos turned toward a massive, ornate console imbued with ancient magic. With a flick of his hand, he activated a series of runes and spoke a command. The towering Bran Castle shimmered momentarily before vanishing into the ether as layers of legendary ranked illusion barriers and intricate magic formations rendered it invisible. Khan turned to the Revenant Sovereign, who had been silently observing the exchange. Where to now? The Sovereign asked, his deep voice reverberating through the room. Khan's expression softened, a rare flicker of nostalgia crossing his features. His lips curled into a faint smile. To Verlassen fiefdom. That very evening, the Bran Castle emerged from the shadows over a remote mountainous valley. This secluded location, teeming with low-level monsters, was nestled 35,000 kilometers away from the no-man's land, ensuring a safe haven far from prying eyes. Khan stood in the castle's command room, gazing at the expanse below as he retrieved an old transmission artifact, one he hadn't used in many years. Channeling his mana into the device, he spoke with a tone of quiet authority. "Come meet me at the border, and lead me to where he is now." The artifact buzzed briefly before a voice, brimming with zealous devotion, responded, "Yes, my lord, I shall lead you to him." Hours later, the Bran castle floated silently above the borders of the valley, halting in front of an invisible barrier. The barrier exuded a palpable resistance, a clear indication of its intent to repel intruders. This magical force seemed particularly agitated by the presence of the 12 saints aboard the castle, including Argo's royal knights. However, there was one exception: Omega. As a being who defied natural classification, neither holy monster nor saint, Omega passed through without issue, his very existence challenging the rules the barrier imposed. After several minutes of tense waiting, swoosh, a figure cloaked in flowing gray mage robes materialized beyond the barrier. The individual, a silver-haired man with piercing yellow eyes, carried a simple brown scepter that radiated faint magical energy. Moving with unhurried grace, he approached the castle's open garden, where Khan and his entourage waited. In terms of appearance, his face had a lot of striking resemblance with Khan, having both charisma and regality of a majestic ruler. The Saint Knights stepped aside as the mage drew near. He halted a few meters from Khan, then gracefully dropped to one knee, his voice steady but laced with reverence. "Subordinate Tobias greets my master." This was a legendary rank subordinate Khan had created using Ezekiel Nabi, a semi-saint mage who had once entered the Forbidden Zone as a chosen representative from the neutral faction. Back then, Ezekiel had been killed by Khan, and before leaving the Rocco's empire, Khan utilized his corpse to create Tobias, who was already comparable to a second-stage saint upon his creation. Since saints were unrivaled in the Verlassen fiefdom, Khan left Tobias to rule in his stead. During his final proclamation in the empire, Khan introduced a democratic voting system, allowing the people to choose their new leaders. However, the reality behind this facade was far more sinister. Through his shadowy criminal organization known as Seven Deadly Sins, Khan had covertly manipulated the entire political process. This organization controlled the underworld, numerous nobles, government officials, and influential business corporations, after forcing many to sign blood oath contracts that bound them to Khan's will. As a result, Tobias was elected as the new governor of Verlassen fiefdom with overwhelming support. To the outside world, Tobias was a semi-saint and an old ally of the late Khan Salvatore, known for his commitment to safeguarding the fiefdom and its people. His public persona was that of a righteous and competent leader, trusted and supported by all factions within Verlassen. However, behind the scenes, Tobias was working tirelessly to fulfill Khan's hidden directives. Tobias' rule was further secured by the Covenant Army, a military force Khan had established before his departure. This force not only protected the fiefdom but also maintained Tobias' undisputed authority over the region. "What about the 40 semi-saints I left to serve under you?" asked Khan, his tone steady yet curious. "I apologize, master. None of them have been able to break through to legendary or saint rank," responded Tobias, bowing his head slightly in deference. "Well, that's to be expected. Did their involvement help you rule the fiefdom effectively?" Khan followed up, probing further. "Yes, master. I rule the capital Asir with an iron fist. There is no one daring enough to oppose us in any way. Furthermore, the noble factions have barely recovered their reputation since your departure. In the meantime, no one has dared to create any trouble for us," Tobias replied with confidence. Khan nodded approvingly. "And what about your own progress?" he asked, this time with a glint of expectation in his eyes. To this question, Tobias allowed a proud smile to creep onto his face. Boom! The next moment, an awe-inspiring spectacle unfolded. A multicolored domain spread across the surrounding area, covering a 30-kilometer radius that encompassed the entire mountain range, dense forests, and all the monsters within. The domain radiated immense power, forcing even the monstrous entities nearby into submission. "This is," Khan murmured, sensing the magnitude of Tobias' display. Without hesitation, Tobias revealed the full extent of his growth. Dozens of fortress-like constructs, warships, and hundreds of High Lord rank monsters materialized within the domain, each one exuding power and readiness. But it didn't stop there. Dozens of 100-meter-tall feathered warriors, clad in golden armor, appeared. Their radiant white wings gave them an angelic appearance, though their fierce presence told a different story. Behind them stood hundreds of 20-meter-tall mages and summoners, wielding grimoires and staves and adorned in dark red robes that seemed to hum with forbidden power. "This is my domain of sublimation," declared Tobias, his voice reverberating with authority and pride, his aura a tangible force of dominance. "I created it after studying all the magic grimoires, skill books, and research materials available in the archives of the castle you once resided in." Tobias began, his tone calm and respectful, as if explaining the weather. "After I took the position of governor, I discovered a hidden room where one of the previous sovereigns conducted his studies. He developed magical formations, created underlings to assist with his own skills, and enhanced the power of his summoned knights during combat. I built on that foundation and devised this domain. The best part is that I can keep adding summons using the bodies of my fallen enemies." Tobias paused before continuing. "The only drawback lies in the compatibility of the corpses with my rank, skills, and elemental affinities. However, if I obtain suitable corpses that meet these criteria, the growth of my domain, and my strength as a saint, is truly tremendous." The moment he finished speaking, the atmosphere shifted. Not just Khan, but everyone else in the entourage stood frozen, mouths slightly agape. "Isn't that?" Vildred, the Revenant Sovereign, finally broke the silence. "Yes, it's exactly what you think," Khan replied, his countenance a mixture of disbelief and awe. "He's essentially created a miniature version of my synthesis divine ability." The surroundings were now filled with shock and also admiration. Not only was Tobias a genius when it came to strategically govern a vast fiefdom, but as a mage-class being, he had the skills that could rival even other powerful saints of the world. The only thing stopping Tobias from becoming a terrifying existence was the lack of resources and his current rank as a 5th-stage saint. "System, show me his stats," commanded Khan. Following are the statistics of the subordinate Tobias. Name, Tobias. Species, human. Rank, legendary rank / 5th stage saint. Level, 614. Strength, 11,245. Agility, 15,889. Dexterity, 25,667. Defense, 10,540. Mana, 836718. Replied the system. "What? That mana stat is even higher than mine," spoke Khan, realizing the absurd number. Sidam detects that the subordinate has unlocked a legendary rank class all by his own. Informed the system. "What is it?" he asked. The system took a pause and relayed the unexpected achievement made by Tobias, the ritualist. As the system announced that Tobias, the so-called replacement, had unlocked a legendary rank class, even among the magician class, all by himself. Khan stood utterly baffled. "How?" he thought, his mind racing. "I didn't even give him that many powerful abilities when I created him. Back then, I barely had any saint rank skills or passive abilities. How could he possibly attain such a unique class on his own?" For a moment, he wondered if Tobias carried a hidden attribute or trait that had enabled such a meteoric rise. "Does he have a particular trait similar to my other subordinates?" Khan queried the system, seeking clarity. After a brief pause, the system replied, "The subordinate Tobias indeed carries a particular trait derived from the host." Khan's curiosity sharpened. "Which one?" he demanded, almost impatient. Another moment passed before the system dropped the revelation. The host's eidetic memory. Stunned, Khan sat rooted on the spot, unable to process what he'd just learned. Are you kidding me? If eidetic memory was that overpowered, then I, Sheldon Cooper, and Mike Ross would have basically conquered the Earth. Khan internally retorted, frustration bubbling up. He was well aware that while his eidetic memory had been a boon, especially when learning magic from Vildred, it wasn't a magic bullet. It came with limits like any other skill. Before he could continue venting, Rathnar's voice cut in, calm but firm. Kid, I don't think that's the problem here. Khan paused, listening. Unlike you, Tobias hasn't spent years on the run or needed to learn fighting skills from Romulus or that Miyamoto guy. He didn't have to force his body to adapt to the various laws of reality or endure harsh training to raise his elemental affinities. Remember, you created him from mage-class people, including that semi-saint boy from the neutral faction. In a way, Tobias was already predisposed to excel at magic. His foundation was solid, overpowered even when you first created him. And now he's simply built upon that foundation. Rathnar's voice carried a note of pride as he explained further. The fact that he can wield multiple elemental debuffs despite not being a chosen hero is proof of his talent. Even among the saints you've faced, most only have 2 or 3 elemental affinities unless they're chosen heroes. Tobias' achievements are extraordinary, but they're his own. Your eidetic memory simply gave him a tool to unlock his potential. The former peak saint's tone softened. Don't discredit him just because he inherited something from you. His progress wasn't handed to him. It was earned through relentless effort. If anything, you should take pride in the fact that your subordinate has risen to such heights through his own hard work. It's something you and him also have in common. Khan exhaled deeply, finally letting Rathnar's words sink in. I see. It's good that his efforts have paid off. Khan exhaled as the initial shock began to fade. I was just caught off guard because I wasn't there to witness his struggles or share much combat experience with him. Unlike the rest of my generals. He collected his thoughts, allowing his composure to settle before speaking. Congratulations, Tobias. You've achieved something that far exceeds my expectations. Khan's praise was sincere, and his words carried a weight that resonated deeply with the one they were addressed to. A heartfelt smile blossomed on Tobias' handsome and regal countenance. His golden eyes gleamed with pure joy, the glow of his emotions mirroring the pride that surged through him after finally receiving proper acknowledgement from Khan, his creator and master. I live only for your sake, my lord, Tobias declared, his voice steady and filled with unwavering loyalty. My greatest wish is to serve and accompany you in the coming years, whether it is managing a territory, forging alliances, or fighting innumerable enemies on the battlefield. This Tobias shall be at your side every step of the way, my master. System, explain the legendary ritualist class to me. Ordered Khan. Following are the powers, skills, and abilities that are unlocked with the ritualist legendary rank class. Enforcer of Affliction, legendary rank. Allows the subordinate to put multiple elemental debuffs on the opponents in 30 kilometer radius, such as increasing all the received elemental damage by 25% regardless of their location, numbers, and rank. This ability works on all saints, monsters, and summoned entities regardless of their protective measures such as armors, magic barriers, and formations. Wrath of Status Effect, Saint Rank. During the battle, each elemental debuff placed on an opponent increases 0.1% of the total physical and magical damage received by the enemy. The higher the amount of enemies, the higher the percentage. Note: maximum increase up to 25%. Terror of Elements, Saint Rank. Every time a target that received 4 or more elemental debuffs dies, the nearby enemy in a 200-meter radius receives 0.02% of the total damage done. If more than 100 enemies are present in a 200-meter radius, then all of them will receive 20% of the original damage done without even the caster targeting them. Note: maximum increase up to 200% of the original damage done by the caster. Purge the heretics, Saint rank. After an opponent dies, the caster and the summoned entities by the caster will recover 0.1% health as regenerated HP. After 1,000 or more enemies are killed by the caster within a 1 kilometer radius, all the elemental damage will increase by an additional 25%. Increase the total damage by an extra 50%. Note: maximum time limit is 1 hour for this buff received by the caster. Death Embrace, legendary rank. After 10,000 or more enemies are killed by the caster in a 1 kilometer radius, the caster and the magic class summons such as mages and priests will receive 35% of mana and world energy spent back to them. Note: at maximum, only 1,000 magic class summons can receive this buff. Aberration Creator, legendary rank. Allows the caster to turn dead enemies based on their elemental affinities and class as his underlings while increasing their rank as warriors. The higher class opponents killed by the caster, the higher leveled underling created. Note: this skill works only on the beings that possess the same combat or magic class. Both monster species of similar bloodline or saint rank individuals of the same class are needed for them to be turned into an aberration. Concluded the system. One after another, Khan was hit with too much mind-boggling information. Son of a bitch! He has 3 legendary rank and 3 saint rank skills. Even Cyril didn't have that many when he finally became a legendary rank being himself. It feels like I underestimated my own creation. He is an unkillable machine in a large-scale battle. Not only will his elemental debuffs weaken and hurt a lot of enemy troops, but he will also receive AoE effects after they die, increasing his elemental damage even more. Then, the dead enemies will increase his elemental damage by 25%. Although it's the maximum limit, the stronger and higher the number of enemies, the more damage will be added based on the enemy's own stats. Not only will he get the health regeneration as a reward, but his summons will also gain the health back. That's plenty helpful, especially if you have knights, tanks, and even mage-class summons, the kind that benefit from constant healing the most. It's like he has his own versions of Blackwell, Jugram, Cyril, and Armin as part of his summons. And there's hundreds of them. Iterated Khan as he saw the immense potential Tobias had with the Ritualist class. Khan then told everyone about Tobias' unique abilities and his legendary class since all of them were his trusted allies. He is like a perfect combination of a shaman and summoner class. The kind even I haven't witnessed in all my years on Vantria, said Vildred, the Sage of Preservation. I'm no mage, but even I can tell that his skills are already on par with archmages of many empires. The higher he rises in ranks, the stronger his abilities will get. Spoke Argos, the Revenant Sovereign. Yes, although he can't revive them as I and Cyril do. It's still the closest thing to having an undying army of soldiers without actually having the Necromancer class. Plus, what the hell is up with that mana and world energy regeneration? That's something even an archmage struggles with, said Khan. Vildred nodded with Khan on this. Because mana and world energy regeneration were very rare to the point that only Khan, Cyril, Armin, and Vildred had that in their group so far. And all of them were very rare exceptions, just gathered together via coincidence. Now, Tobias became the 5th entity in their group to have that. System. Find the following list of powers and abilities I have based on the criteria and specifications I give you. Commanded Khan. He then started listing a few more overpowered abilities he had with magical class, passive skills, elemental affinities, and health recoveries such as instant regeneration and elemental barrage that raised the elemental damage by 500%. What does the host wish to do with these abilities? Asked the system. A sinister smirk appeared on Khan's face as he declared, "Let's make him a broken cheat character." Khan's mind raced with possibilities, his lips curling into a devious grin as he envisioned the chaos Tobias could unleash. The sheer potential of the Ritualist class was astounding, and Khan knew that Tobias, with his unique abilities, could tip the scales of the Great War in ways no one could predict or counter. Tobias was no mere subordinate. He was the ultimate debuff specialist, the kind of weapon that could make even the mightiest armies crumble into dust. The idea was simple but devastatingly effective. Tobias's unmatched ability to weaken enemies and empower allies would make him the cornerstone of Khan's strategy. Unlike Khan himself or Cyril, whose abilities were tied to specific elements, Tobias had no such restrictions. He could manipulate and weaponize all elements of reality, even the rare light element and holy magic, with ease. His versatility made him an unparalleled force, capable of adapting to any battlefield scenario. Khan's imagination conjured the scene, himself and his generals, already formidable beyond compare, stepping onto a battlefield while Tobias's buffs coursed through their veins. Their physical and elemental powers would surge to overwhelming levels, while their enemies would writhe in agony under the constant assault of Tobias's elemental debuffs. The battlefield would become a slaughterhouse, with no hope of reprieve for those on the receiving end of Tobias's relentless abilities. It wasn't just Tobias's offensive capabilities that impressed Khan. The synergy between Tobias and the rest of his subordinates was nothing short of terrifying. No matter how many enemies stood before them, they would never tire, never falter, and never fall. Tobias's presence ensured that even in the most grueling of battles, Khan's forces would maintain their edge. Plus, he could also create summoned beings just like Khan and Cyril. And then there was the Pendragon formation, a formation that amplified the entire team's damage output by 50%. When combined with Tobias's buffs and the innate power of Khan's legendary subordinates, the results would be catastrophic for their enemies. The thought of Tobias's potential on a larger scale made Khan's grin widen further. Picture millions of enemy soldiers, dozens of saints, and countless monsters marching under the banner of an opposing empire. What could they possibly do against Tobias? His debuffs would cripple their forces before they even reached the front lines, while his buffs would turn Khan's own troops into unstoppable engines of destruction. The ritualist's abilities would dismantle any resistance, rendering even the most formidable armies powerless. Tobias's existence was nothing short of game-breaking. He was the perfect tool for turning the tide of any battle, the embodiment of imbalance in a war where Khan aimed to rewrite the rules entirely. Khan had no intention of fighting fair. Why should he when he had Tobias? The Great War wasn't just about victory. It was about dominance, about making a statement that no one could challenge his might. Thus, Khan resolved to make Tobias the ultimate cheat character on their side. A force so overwhelming that even the mere thought of opposing them would become an act of futility. His smirk deepened, the gleam in his eyes akin to that of a demon relishing the chaos he was about to unleash. The exhilaration in his voice was palpable, filled with the thrill of domination. Khan soon declared, his tone dripping with confidence and malice. As if fighting against me and my group wasn't already unfair. Now it will be impossible to win. A dozen minutes later, the system had finished passing on some of Khan's most powerful skills to Tobias that would benefit his ritualist legendary rank class. A total of 7 legendary rank passive skills and abilities, as well as 12 saint rank spells and magical attack skills were imparted to Tobias. On top of it, Khan also gave Tobias 3 legendary rank magic formations taught to him directly by Vildred, the Lightning Dragon Emperor. Tobias, on the receiving end, felt like all his hard work in serving his master had turned incredibly fruitful to the point he broke past all of his previous limitations that he was struggling as a magic class being. Unlike most of Khan's subordinates, Tobias was a full-fledged human, so he had no bloodline effects that helped him so far. But now that Khan imparted these tremendously overpowered and helped abilities directly to him, he felt like his clouded future had turned already bright, as if a sun had shone over him after a mortifying night. Thank you, Master. I will keep trying to break past my limits and prove my worth to you, spoke Tobias politely and bowed with a right fist placed on his heart. Well, I wouldn't have it otherwise, said Khan and patted Tobias' shoulder. Now lead us to him, spoke Khan. Actually, they are both there, spoke Tobias as he indicated another person's presence. Aha! Good grief. Now we will have a bountiful reunion, it seems, spoke Khan with a nostalgic expression. 10 minutes later, the invisible Bran Castle floated in the sky while a massive villa located just 30 kilometers away from the northern border of the Verlassen fiefdom came into sight. Beyond that villa, was a massive building filled with hundreds of artisans and blacksmiths working in a 3-kilometer-long manufacturing facility that had hundreds of forge. Just the constant incoming and outgoing crowd of people along with flying ships and vehicles parked in the 2-kilometer range were enough to indicate how financially profitable this blacksmithing company called Bloodborne was. And since the 2 suns in the sky were settling down, people were already departing for their homes. The man who ran this company also returned to his villa. While watching the sunset from the garden of his house, the servants brought him a cup of fragrant tea as another person sat beside him on a chair across the table. "You look like you've turned even younger now that you've become a second-stage saint," spoke a tall and skinny green-skinned and black-haired orc, adorning scholarly attire while wearing glasses. "Says the orc who looks far livelier than the time I met him all those years ago," responded the old and white-bearded man who, despite being 85 years old, looked like he was in his 60s. "Well, I guess working hard and living a fulfilling life does affect your mind and body. Compared to back then, I can hardly remember the time I've slept on an empty stomach. My life was overturned all those years ago by random strangers on the street. Now I earn a hefty wealth while repaying that favor, so I have no complaints," spoke the orc as he gently sipped the tea while basking in the sunlight. "But why did you want to meet me today? You're usually very busy with your work. Every single reputable clan and its leaders are literally begging you to forge their custom weapons. I even heard that the leader of the neutral faction, Stalin Joseph, asked you to forge a legendary rank weapon for him," iterated the orc. "Well, there's no end to these requests, but I denied him, including the leader of the Pureblood faction. I'm not making weapons for those bastards who forced him to leave," replied the old man begrudgingly. "As for the reason why I called you here to reminisce," said the old Saint Blacksmith. "Reminisce what?" asked the scholarly orc. "Today. It's been exactly 5 years since he left," spoke the old man with a nostalgic but also regretful tone. "After my children were killed, I only lived for the sake of revenge. Yet even after trying for the next 4 years, I couldn't even touch one of those noble clan bastards. Nobody helped me. I couldn't even contact anyone for help, and I was shunned by the whole city just so they wouldn't get into trouble by associating with me." He spoke with saddened eyes. "Yet one day showed up a young man in front of my downtrodden house, knocking on my door. Not only did he promise to avenge my children, but also turned their deaths into a public spectacle, just like how those bastards did to my son and daughter. Later, he took me to the capital with him, helped me create a company of my own, and even when fate forced him to leave this empire, he gave me a saint's core. Now I've been living a completely different life because of him. Though he wasn't my blood, that stranger became family to me," spoke the old man as tears almost welled up in his eyes. "Can't say I disagree with that. He also helped me when my whole world crumbled right in front of my eyes. He trusted me and my skills as an accountant even when I had no hope in myself. Meeting you two that day during the Emperor's Chosen tournament opening was the best thing that happened in my life," spoke the orc as his voice also turned somber. The orc sipping his tea with a grateful countenance was none other than Sirius Blake. He handled the bookkeeping and 7 deadly sins underworld wealth, working directly with Tobias. As for the old man who was distraught but also missing the said young man even though the latter had been gone for 5 years, his whereabouts unknown and no information available, whether he was dead or alive, yet eagerly waiting for the young man's return was Albestros Winston. Albestros Winston, one of the 2 people who had shared any meaningful connection with Khan during his time in the Rocco's Empire, was lost in thought. It was the 5th anniversary of Khan's departure, and memories of their time together flooded his mind. He couldn't help but feel a pang of longing for the man who had once been a significant part of his life. In the midst of this quiet reminiscence, a calm, pleased voice suddenly echoed from behind, shattering the tranquil moment. "Looks like I've been missed." Startled, Albestros and Sirius turned toward the source of the voice. Standing before them was a man clad in a dark gray long coat. His tall and firm physique radiated an imposing aura, but it was the voice that struck a deep chord within Albestros, sending him spiraling down memory lane. Who are you?" Albestros stammered, his voice shaky with disbelief. But before the man could respond, Albestro's gaze locked onto the dark gray long coat. Recognition dawned upon him like a bolt of lightning. It was made from the hide of the legendary rank Invimarak monster, an attire he had crafted with his own hands. His body trembled, his eyes wide with shock as he whispered, "KK-Khan." The man on the other end, a light smile gracing his lips, gave a small nod. His calm and familiar voice broke through the veil of disbelief. "How have you been, old man?" Albestros stumbled to his feet, his steps unsteady, as he turned to Sirius, desperate for confirmation. "You're seeing the same thing, right? It's not just my imagination, right?" Sirius, equally unsure, studied the figure before them. His voice was uncertain as he replied, "This man looks older, but the voice and face are very similar to Sir Salvatore." Whoosh! Before they could process what was happening, a swoosh announced the arrival of another figure. Tobias appeared beside the man, his expression calm yet filled with reverence. He turned toward Albestros and Sirius and spoke with quiet conviction as if declaring an undeniable truth. "Our master has finally returned home." It took Albestros and Sirius a few minutes to fully process the reality of the situation. If not for Tobias's unwavering presence and confirmation, they would have struggled to believe that it truly was Khan standing before them, alive and well. But once the truth sank in, the shock gave way to overwhelming joy, and the atmosphere shifted naturally. Soon, the three men greeted one another warmly, the air filled with genuine affection. Hugs were exchanged, and their fondness for one another became unmistakable. "Brat, what are you doing here? I thought you'd be hiding off somewhere, laying low," Albestros said, his voice laced with concern. Khan responded with calm confidence. "Well, I've been to many places since we last met, and I've grown stronger, strong enough that I no longer need to hide from those noble factions or anyone else." Khan's tone turned serious as he continued, "There's something I need to tell both of you, something I've kept hidden, not because I didn't trust you, but because knowing it would have put your lives at risk." Intrigued, Albestros and Sirius listened closely as Khan prepared to reveal the truth he had concealed for years. "I'm the hero of darkness," Khan finally declared, his voice steady. "A what?" Albestros blurted out, utterly baffled. "Is that the name of some play or a fairy tale?" Sirius asked, his confusion evident. Albestros, the oldest and most experienced of the group, took a moment to recall something from his youth. "Wait, I've heard stories about so-called heroes when I was a child. But isn't that just folklore? Tales spun by those empires that serve gods." Khan nodded slightly, fully expecting this reaction. After all, the Rocco's empire had deliberately downplayed the truth about gods and heroes for centuries. In a land where religious institutions were forbidden and society shunned divine influence, stories of gods and the war against the demon god were dismissed as mere rumors or propaganda. Rathnar's descendants, in particular, had long shaped the narrative to frame these tales as tools of manipulation used by enemy empires. They claimed these empires spread such stories to introduce religion into Rocco's culture, a means to infiltrate and ultimately dominate their society. These empires were portrayed as exploiters who divided their people by species, bloodlines, religious faith, and wealth, demanding donations as a prerequisite for divine blessings. It was a narrative that resonated deeply with Rocco's citizens, reinforcing their disdain for religious influence and allowing the empire to maintain its unique cultural independence. Khan's revelation, however, now challenged everything Albestros and Sirius thought they knew about the world they lived in. The chosen heroes had long faded into myth and legend within the Rocco's empire. To the common people, they were nothing more than old tales whispered by the wind. Even now, the government deliberately withheld any information about the ongoing war with the Demon Empire, keeping the populace in the dark. Their goal was simple: to avoid involvement in a conflict they wanted no part of. One key reason for this stance lay in the Rocco's empire's unique structure. Unlike the monarchies of other nations, Rocco's was closer to a republic, with noble clans being the only remnant of a bygone aristocratic era. However, even the nobles lacked actual governing authority unless they were democratically elected, such as mayors or heads of government institutions. This system fostered a culture of equality, or at least the illusion of it, where imperial rule or theocracy was viewed as oppressive relics of the past. To the citizens of Rhokkos, imperial rule symbolized tyranny, and theocracy represented a system of control that segregated people by species, status, or wealth. The idea of being enslaved or oppressed based on such factors was anathema to their worldview. Amidst this societal context, Khan made his bold move. "It is true," he said, responding to their skepticism. "Let me prove it to you." Without warning, Khan activated his world creation ability, pulling Tobias, Albestros, and Sirius into his realm. Inside this domain, Khan unleashed a spectacle of his powers. First, he revealed his rank as a sixth-stage saint, a level of strength that left them awestruck. Then, one by one, he showcased his abilities. Crimson Azura mode blazed around him, a form so menacing it seemed to ignite the very air. His dragonoid form erupted into existence, radiating draconic majesty. Next came the Space Overlord form, made entirely of shimmering cosmic ether, its sheer presence bending the laws of reality within his domain. Finally, he revealed his form as the Apostle of War, embodying raw, unbridled power as a 1-kilometer-tall titanic being. Each revelation was more mind-boggling than the last. Albestros and Sirius could hardly believe their eyes as Khan displayed abilities that transcended mortal comprehension. But Khan wasn't finished. A mischievous grin spread across his face as he decided to kick things up a notch. With a snap, his figure disappeared. Moments later, his astral form filled the sky, his face appearing as a celestial visage that dominated the heavens. His eyes, now colossal and glowing like suns, gazed down upon them, each iris as vast as a mountain. In this divine form, Khan resembled a god in every sense of the word. "And I'm just one of the 13 summoned heroes," Khan boomed, his voice reverberating through the entire realm. "The others have their powers and abilities." Stunned into silence, Albestros and Sirius struggled to process what they had just witnessed. Finally, Albestros managed to speak, his voice trembling with confusion. "Wait, you said summoned. What do you mean by that?" Khan's celestial form dissolved, and he returned to his original appearance. His tone softened, but the weight of his words carried a gravity that could not be ignored. "It means," he began, "I'm not from this world." Both Albestros and Sirius were utterly dumbfounded, their minds reeling from the torrent of revelations. Accepting Khan as a chosen hero was already a leap into the incomprehensible, but hearing that he wasn't even from their world, that was beyond anything they could fathom. "What? That's impossible," Albestros exclaimed, his voice shaking with disbelief, his usually composed demeanor shattered. "I don't believe this. This has to be some kind of illusion or a trick," Sirius protested, gripping his arm and pinching himself hard, wincing at the sharp sting. Yet, no matter how real the pain felt, his mind refused to fully accept what he was seeing and hearing. Khan, standing firm in his calm but commanding presence, spoke once more, his voice steady as a rock. "It is true. I come from a planet called Earth. Well, one of the millions of versions of Earth, to be exact. And this isn't unique to me. The same is true for all the other summoned heroes throughout history. Every single one of them came from different worlds and periods." The weight of his words settled over the room like a suffocating fog as Khan delved deeper into the truth. He explained the machinations of the gods, the Empire's role, and the demon god's looming threat, a being powerful enough to threaten the entire planet. And most importantly, why did Khan hide his identity even to his closest allies? Soon, Khan started recounting the history of the summoned heroes, stretching back 3,000 years, and revealed the grim fate of the previous generation of heroes. And for whatever reason, Khan's predecessor's action made it impossible for him to have a standard start like the other heroes. "I was dropped at the border of the Abyss Forest by the god of darkness and death," Khan continued, his tone steady and matter-of-fact. Rocco's empire was chosen because it was the best starting point for me. It was a place where I could grow, learn, and prepare without drawing too much attention in the beginning. I had no resources, no allies, and no support, unlike every hero before me. That's when we met, and you the rest of the story, he said with a serious tone. As Khan finished recounting his tale, Albestros and Sirius sat in stunned silence, their minds racing to piece everything together. Finally, Albestros broke the silence, his voice hesitant but full of curiosity. Then why have you returned to Rocco's empire now? Shouldn't you be preparing for this war against the demon god? Khan gave a slight nod, a shadow of determination crossing his face. I am preparing for that war, he said firmly. But for reasons I can't fully disclose yet, I need to return to the Abyss Forest. And Rocco's empire offers me the safest route to get there. The rest of the world already knows about my identity as the hero of darkness, and I have enemies everywhere. He paused for a moment, letting his next words sink in. I don't know if anyone in Rocco's empire knows I'm alive or what my role is, but to ensure my preparations succeed. Khan's expression darkened, his gaze steely. I plan to topple the Rocco's empire and take control. He spoke, and soon, in a dignified tone, he revealed his ambition. I'm going to become the emperor. A pin-drop silence ensued as Khan declared his goal. As soon as he said that, both Albestros and Sirius turned blank and dry like a sheet of paper. Khan was giving them a bigger surprise than before with every new revelation. And now, he suddenly said that he wanted to rule the whole Rocco's empire. That seemed even more absurd to their normal people minds. What Khan wished to do was something even the original Khan Salvatore, aka the Martial Emperor, also did in the original timeline. He gained his moniker, known to the whole Vantria after becoming the Emperor of Rocco's empire. The difference was that it happened over 8 to 10 years in the future. But in the new aka the current timeline, Khan was basically speeding up the process by a huge margin. The drawback to this decision was that, in the original timeline, the Martial Emperor was an 8th stage saint when he did it. The Great War was already being fought for several years. The Rocco's empire at that time had no choice but to get involved, and since Khan was the only hero with roots in the Rocco's empire, even all the noble factions and government had no choice but to follow him. Also, in both timelines, the original and the current Khan had Rathnar's core as well as the Tablet of Arcana. It helped the Martial Emperor make a legitimate claim as the rightful successor and offer some favors to those in power by helping the saints become stronger. However, the present situation is completely different. He had far more odds and unfavorable situations against Khan if he were to act this quickly instead of waiting for many years. Back to the present. Khan let out a sigh and spoke in a calm tone. Tobias, how many people do we still have in Rathna under the 7 deadly sins capital branch? Around 3 million people spread across all the 156 districts. We also have infiltrated a lot of noble clans, government offices, and institutions. We have plenty of spies in nobility, government, business corporations, and the underworld. Responded Tobias, showing how greatly he expanded with Khan's previous commands. Back when Khan left, he barely had 30,000 active members in Rathna, but Tobias turned those numbers into 3 million. Serious? How about the funding? Asked Khan. We are currently even richer than most of the noble clans and maybe even on par with any of the 3 noble factions combined. Verlassen fiefdom's resources and connections in Rathna have helped us greatly over the past 5 years. We could even fund a whole civil war in the Empire if you wish, replied Sirius with almost a sinister smirk appearing on his lips as he proclaimed proudly. Old man, what about Bloodborne? Asked Khan. Albestros took a thinking stance as he gently caressed his beard with a contemplative expression. Although I only take high-grade orders and the company now produces 35% of all weaponry made for all the noble factions as well as some military supplies, we have at least 17 quadrillion dramus in savings and our market share is also 38%. Explained Albestros. That's a lot for a single company. To think that the building behind this villa produces so much wealth. It is commendable. Spoke Khan. Albestros almost couldn't hide his proud face and quickly replied with a quaint smile. With you gone, I dedicated myself only to blacksmithing. I kept improving over the past 5 years, and just 4 months ago, I became a second-stage saint as well. I never thought I'd get to this stage in my lifetime. And also thanks to Sirius and Tobias taking everything on the business side, the company's name, reputation in the market, and my own prestige kept rising. Iterated the old blacksmith. So in a way, we both have money, power, influence, information, and reputation even without me in the picture, right? Asked Khan. Yes. That was a unified response coming from Tobias, Sirius, and Albestros. Soon, a greedy and malevolent smile appeared on Khan's face, almost making Albestros and Sirius wonder if the man in front of them was a demon from hell. Good. Then I have a plan. And I need all of you. Spoke Khan and explained his plans to take over the Rocco's empire. After half an hour of discussion, one big question appeared on Albestros and Sirius' minds. All of this works only if we have someone stronger than all the faction leaders. Someone that is at least an intermediate 8th-stage saint. Said Albestros. About that. Suddenly, a grim but also majestic voice echoed. Swoosh! 2 figures appeared in front of them. One was a vampire with black and emerald green armor, while the other was a mage with dragon horns, holding a majestic scepter while adorning pristine white and blue robes. Who are you? Asked Albestros with a shocked face. Oh, they're nothing special, spoke Khan nonchalantly. It's just a 9th-stage sovereign and a royal dragon.